Welcome to Truth UnCompromised. I am your host, Rhonda. Join us every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Truth is peace. Truth is justice and freedom to love, live, and be. Music provided by SourceVibrations.com. I am love. I am peace. I am free. I have abundance. I have everything within me. For I was, for I am, for I will always be. We are love. We are peace. We are free. We have abundance. We have everything within us. For we are, for we will always be. For Mother Earth is love. For Mother Earth has peace. For Mother Earth is free. For Mother Earth has abundance. For Mother Earth has everything within her. For she was, for she is, for she will always be. And so it is spoken. So it has been written, and it is done.
You have entered into a dimension of truth where time does not exist and illusions are shattered. The journey of truth is intense. The journey of truth will set you free. Consider this a warning as you enter the dimension of truth uncompromised. All right, family. Welcome to the Truth Uncompromised show. I am your host, Rhonda, and tonight is Thursday, April 18th. We have a great show planned for you tonight. We are doing part 3 of our series, The Lands of the Giants. So hopefully you've been following us in this series. We are using the main source material from a book that Brother Sean was hip to called Bashan and Its Giant Cities. So in this book, this one guy from England was commissioned to go in the biblical lands. So he is doing a journey like in the Lebanon, area, Palestine, etc., etc., and he's literally tracing the steps of some of the biblical events, and specifically, he's running across the lands of the giants. So out the gate in the series, we discovered how this one gentleman that's doing this journey has credited Noah. Noah from the Bible. You all know, if you're familiar with the biblical stories, that built the alleged ark. Well, anyhow, he pegged Noah as a giant, and as well pegged one of his children as giants as well. And then he also gives credit to last of the giants named Og, as the last one that was remaining. Now, interestingly enough, as we're following along in this particular book, this gentleman discussed how the Israelites were warring with the giants, and specifically, and a lot of this is biblically documented as well, if the Bible is your thing. But this guy, kind of talks about in the Bible how their God told them to go over into the giants' land. He didn't say giants, but he gave them the particular area, and once they went and checked it out, it was the giants. So I found that highly interesting, that his admission that they were warring with the giants over land. Okay, so we're going to pick back up with this series on part 3. But in addition to that, we did have a couple of follow-up items that I did last week, and I got a lot of response back from the family, and thank you for that feedback. When I was going through the first, quote, first melanated senators and congressmen, I'll say congresspeople, House of Representatives and senators of the United States in that Reconstruction era. So they call that Reconstruction era the period after the Civil War. Okay, so sitting in a lot of those House of Representatives and congressional seats were a lot of melanated men. And so based on the research in the series that we did on the Black nobility and the Americas, and tracing the heritage of a lot of these last surnames back to Europe, and some of them back to the thrones of Europe, I did the same thing with these particular senators, or senators and congressmen of the Reconstructive era. And we're only halfway through the list, but every one of them, their surnames trace back, of course, directly to England, Ireland. I don't think we ran across Russia yet, but Europe. Now, keep in mind that series we did on Black nobilities in the Americas, all of Europe was black. Okay, so all of Europe, all of Asia, all of Africa, all of the Americas were black. Okay, so I have also added to the list this week, and hopefully we can get through the rest of the names and get to this list as well. I've added to the list, remember the first melanated presidents before George Washington? So I've added them to the list as well. So we're going to look at the origins of their particular surnames and discovered when that name hit the American shores. And then we have a couple of other follow-up items. So with that said, let me bring on my co-host. Okay, I'm not seeing Sis, so she'll get in when she get in. Let me bring on Brother Sean. Peace and love, brother. How are you?
Wholeness and power, sis. I'm well. How about you?
I'm doing well. Can't complain at all. I played the opening song by Donald Glover, or he calls himself Childish Gambino, in honor of the nice weather we're having. The name of that song was "Feels Like Summer," and it's just it's just one of those days, just beautiful out, just perfect weather. So glad all is well with you. Shout out to anyone that's trying to get in the chat. Now, Blog talked and set up and changed something, y'all. So I initiated the chat, and the screen is totally different. So I don't even know how we supposed to communicate any of that. So just forgive me. I don't know if this is a one-time thing or they're changing it, period. So you're just going to have to forgive me. I don't even see where I can type in this bad boy. So I'm not ignoring you in the chat room. If you're familiar with Blog Talk's chat and you're on it, you'll see that it looks quite different as well. All righty.
Or y'all could just call in. Call in, holler at us.
True. 929-477-3858, 929-477-3858. But if you want to listen online, I understand, because that's how I used to do with Blog Talk. So you can cook and clean up, have it on speaker, although you can still do that on the phone, but I understand. But yeah, I'm not ignoring you in the chat. I just do not know how to. Yeah, I can see you, beloved. I can see you. India JD3. But I don't know how the hell to type up in here. I can see you, but I don't know how the hell to type. Literally, this is a new screen this week. Okay. All right, family. So we're going to go ahead on and get started. Sis will be with us. Sis Sandra will be with us when she can. Okay, so Brother Sean, before I get started with my stuff, do you have any go ahead on with the fuckery?
Indeed.
And just so you know, before you get started, somebody told me, they said, boy, Brother Sean been on the road lately. When he get upset, I said, yeah, which is rare, so I just have to shut up and let it rip. They're like, yeah, boy, I appreciate it, boy. He be going in. So anyhow, go ahead on, brother.
Our burning lady.
What,
Notre
that damn
Dame.
church?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do you get the frame to burn the way that it did? I mean, it looked like embers. It looked like charcoal briquettes, the way that the frame, and then the color of the flames. I mean, that didn't look like no normal fire. It was white smoke. That's more or less.
You think it was arson or?
Yeah, I mean, that was the same color fire, the same color smoke that was coming from the World Trade Center, the California fires.
Yeah.
The way the trees was burning. Well, at least the trees did burn.
They did burn around the
all
church
the trees
this
ain't
time?
get burnt.
Okay.
I mean,
because in California they got skipped, right?
Right.
A lot of the trees and vegetation, the fire mysteriously jumped past that, but yeah.
And how an announcement was made that the total structure was going to be lost first hour. within. I don't see how they knew that. And then they got pictures of people up there around the time that the fire started. And not to mention all the, then not to mention the aircraft, the alien aircraft, the UFOs that just appear out the middle of nowhere and just sitting there right before the fire.
It could be what you call that laser weaponry stuff. Shit, I should know it by now.
Direct energy weapon.
Yeah. It could be the direct energy weapons, because that crossed my mind. Well, not so much of Dewey or Do as arson, because that particular church, I've actually was fortunate enough. It was probably 15, 20 years ago. Matter of fact, it was 1999, now that I remember, because it was Paris had like the countdown to the 2000, the year, the Y2K sign on the Eiffel Tower. Yeah. So I went to visit there, and one of the tourist stops was Notre Dame. And at the time, you couldn't go in because the church was under renovation. So you can only tour the outside with the guy, breaking down the structure. So when I heard about it burning, the first thing came to my mind, they probably trying to come up with some coins to renovate.
They didn't been given over $1 billion. Already.
Yeah.
But my
that
thing
sounds like
is
insurance fraud to me. But anyway, go ahead, brother.
No, they already had scaffolding up, and for the frame to have incinerated like it did, they wasn't actually. I don't know what they was doing, what type of adjustments they were making, or what they were taking out of there. Now, from what we've been learning about this mud flood and all this, that, or the other, that building was obviously already there.
Yes.
With all this information coming out, what is it they burned? What is it they hid? Because everything, quote unquote, of value was taken out of the church. They didn't lose anything.
Oh, now don't that sound familiar? Don't that sound familiar? Am I just making that up? Didn't they move gold and shit from the trade centers and them 2 weeks or something before?
Actually, they done that after the collapse. They was trying to destroy records and everything because they were supposed to be audited.
What, the trade center?
That's
or just for the gold? Just for accounting for all of the gold and that
they were supposed to have been accounting for all that money that came up missing. All the I think it was like a couple trillion that it came up missing.
Yeah, but that was at the Pentagon though. Because that was
wasn't just at the Pentagon. That's why it all went down when it did. Because I think it was in the CIA headquarters that was in one of those buildings. They were supposed
I think that was they
all
was in
the
the
records
short
got
building,
destroyed.
right? That was in. They were in 3. Yeah, but it just sounds fishy. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get off track. Go ahead, brother.
But it was the same color smoke, that white smoke from the thermite.
Right. People wind up getting sick behind, too.
Right. So I'm just wondering, destroying the frame, the wooden frame that's been there for
hundreds
no telling
of years,
how long.
Right.
Maybe thousands, no telling.
Right.
And I mean, what did they? Because we know it wasn't always a church, because that's not what it was originally built for.
Exactly. Energy centers. Right. Now I'm going to have to go back and look at original, older pictures, rather, of it to see what's on top, what was on top of it and all of that jazz.
Yeah, but they didn't raise, like I said, over $1 billion already.
Yeah, it smells insurance-y to me, / probably trying to destroy
That's
some
just
stuff
donations.
Too. Oh, hell to the no. So that ain't even the insurance. Because
that's just donations.
Yeah, that's, well, it is what it is. But because those places like that, they have some hell of an insurance policies.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the other hand, it takes a lot of money to keep places like that restored too.
But I'm not even sure that it's so much about the money, with so much going on over there. As what are they hiding? They're destroying evidence of something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with the situation, with the financial situation the way it is, I just honestly don't believe that money is their objective anymore. It's a distraction for one.
Yeah, true. It always is.
All the energy that people have put off into it, especially the quote-unquote Christians.
Right.
What better way to regalvanize the faith?
Right.
That's all these attacks been happening. I mean, they got to do something. They pulling out all the stops now. I mean, we can't be surprised by nothing that they do.
No, absolutely. Because, in the meantime, over here, I think 3 historical churches, melanated churches, burned. I think it was Louisiana. But remember, they pulled that shit back in, I want to say the 2000s, too. I remember in Georgia, there was a couple of historical churches that was mysteriously burnt down, but it was happening all over the country, melanated churches. So, yeah, they're up to something, but what else is new?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Okay, so I know we've been talking about the pole shift, and we've also been talking about, with the pole shift, the weather. So let me get y'all, so many articles come out during the week. Where the hell? All right, so now this is a shout out to Brother Kalai, because Brother Kalai, shit, he and then I are probably the only 2 melanated people been talking about Europe or Eurasia, because I say Eurasia is going to be frozen over. Okay, and you do have a couple of Caucasian gentlemen, 2 in particular, and one of the guys, he's been tracking it for some years as well. He's been predicting how an ice age is going to happen over in Europe. All right, so sure enough, an article came out this week out of, hold on a second. It's called McLean's, MacLeans.ca. So this is some type of scientific journal. This came out on April 16th. It says, "Say goodbye, Canada. The North Pole is being to Russia." Geophysicists tracking the Earth's magnetic field say the pole is slipping into the Siberian territory. Isn't that interesting. All of that mud stuff that they've been talking about, and that Tartarian stuff. So here we go. Okay. For the first time since it was discovered on the North American mainland, the magnetic North Pole is heading into the Siberian territory. Geophysicists who use satellite data to track the the machination of the Earth's magnetic field say the pole is moving extraordinarily fast, galloping across the Arctic so swiftly that earlier this year its speed forced scientists to recalculate magnetic models earlier than they had planned. The magnetic North Pole is the one spot on the top of the planet where the Earth's magnetic field lines converge and drive straight into its core. Okay, now notice how they word that, drive straight into its core. I find that interesting, meaning core, meaning not only the magnetic pole, but we talked about that, the power of that magnetic black sun that sits at the center. So I found that interesting. So anyway, the core made of solid inner part and molten metallic outer part. Okay, so that's them describing, quote, quote, the core of the earth, which I say is that magnetic black sun. Okay, but anyhow, continuously creates the planet's vast and changeable magnetic field as it sheds heat stored there since the planet's birth. Okay, so again, we've been talking about the plasma energy that comes off of that magnetic sun that sits in the middle, because that magnetic black sun shoots that plasma out beneath the earth, and then it shoots it above and also creates that aurora borealis. Okay, that's why if you're going to keep hearing them talk about, and when I say aurora borealis, for those that aren't familiar with that term, the northern lights. Okay, so literally, when you're in that Arctic region, and like Greenland and all of that, that you can see the northern lights of like green, purple, pink, and all of that. So now you've noticed them talking about how you can see the northern lights over in Michigan. You can see them over Canada, okay? But what they're not being honest about is that shifting as the poles are shifting. And so it's Mother Earth's magnetic vibrational energy shifting across the planet. So anyhow, here we go. Maritime and airplane navigation, defense system, and even smartphones depend on accurate magnetic readings. The cavorting magnetic North Pole has made that tricky for decades, but despite its rapid movement, it has remained in Canada territory until now. While geophysicists can't say for sure when the pole will be in Russia's territory, because it's hard to pinpoint the geographic claims there, they say its Siberian trajectory is unstoppable. That's happening because of the tug of war between two unusually strong magnetic patches in the outer core, says Phil Livermore, director of the Institute of Geophysics and Tectonic at the University of Leeds. One patch is under Canada. The other is beneath Siberia. The magnetic North Pole has historically been in Canada because our country has won the molten push-pull contest, but now he kind of lost my damn space. Oh, I hate when that happens when the screen jumps. Okay, here it goes. Something's changed, and now Siberia is winning. Livermore says, explaining that the patch under Canada is being thinned out like a smear, elongated and weakened by a separate fierce jet of magnetism in the core. For centuries, the magnetic North Pole has been a key geographic prize. Finding it was a central goal of the so-called magnetic crusade that obsessed scientists and navigators in the 18th and 19th century as they raced to understand the mysterious, invisible force that moves the compass. Now, isn't that interesting that in the 18th and 19th century, they were up in the North Pole trying to determine where the magnetic field is. And as we've been doing all of our research, we notice in the 18th and 19th century what was happening over here in the Americas as the indigenous people, our ancestors, were being removed off their land, as now we know the black nobility of Europe were coming in. Okay, so I find that highly interesting. And then I also want to point out, as they talk about this magnetic pole shifting away from what they're calling the North Pole, it kind of almost makes sense a little bit how you keep hearing them come out with these stories on how Antarctica is melting as well. Okay, so the planet is definitely changing. They're not being honest, all the way honest, and talking about the complete pole shift that is going on. Now, they have admitted recently in mainstream media that there's a pole shift, but it's really, really brief that they talk about it, and they want to try to say that it's going to be hundreds of something years. Oh, okay, then. Okay, yeah, whatever. As Russia and Siberia and them about to freeze their asses off. So anyhow, something changed, and now Siberia is winning. Livermore says, explaining that the patch under Canada is being thinned out like smear, elongated, and weakened by a separate fierce jet of magnetism in it.
You breaking up,
okay. Damn it. Let me switch. I was ready for it. All right. Hopefully that's better.
Sis?
Sorry about that. It would help if I unmute myself, right? I'm just talking my ass off until you say this.
I kind of figured that's what happened.
Yeah, I didn't have that line unmuted. Okay, so finally on June 1st, 1831, the Arctic sailor and explorer James Clark Ross. Now that we're learning a lot more about these surnames, remember that Ross name was associated, or it goes back to the Stewarts, okay? And the Stewarts are linked to King James, because Stewart is his mother's maiden name, okay? And that Ross name is a part of that bloodline. So I want y'all to always remember that, okay? So anyhow, Finally, on June 1st, 1831, the Arctic sailor and explorer James Clark Ross set up camp in some abandoned ice hut on the Britannia Peninsula on the mainland of what is now Canada and pinpointed the magnetic pole for the first time. Ross, who named the peninsula after Felix Booth, the wealthy British gin distiller who had financed his expedition, claimed the find for Britain and was knighted. Let me see whatever I wanted, how much of this one I want to read. The magnetic North Pole remains laden with symbolism, says John Geiger, chief executive of the Royal Canadian Geographical Society and Arctic scholar. Russia is prone to chest thumping over any geographic prize, he says, and may do that over gaining this one. Geiger says that among those who have been following the journey of magnetic north, there is a sense of inevitably that it has decamped to Russia. Let me see how much more I want to read of this. Yeah, we don't care about folks. Okay, my feeling is that Earth's forces might be indicating to us that it is time to stop our outmoded notion of borders, boundaries, and ownership, wrote in an email. Many global significant phenomena. Now, I'm not making this up, y'all. This is what some lady, Kathleen Winter, some Canadian author, is saying. My feeling is that Earth's forces might be indicating to us that it is time to stop our outmoded notion of borders, boundaries, and ownership, she wrote in an email. Many global significant phenomena, from weather to animal distress to human migrations, are sending us a clear message that we need to make a gigantic shift in our collective thinking away from small-minded notion of sovereignty and protectionism to something larger and more intelligent. Perhaps the magnetic North Pole's defection is a symbol in itself. It's something we can't change, tether to operations deep within our planet, but it can focus attention on the change we are capable of doing something about. The rising concentration, there they go with that global warming shit, of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere that is destabilizing climate norms. Siberia, after all, also has claim to the pole of cold, the coldest spot in the northern hemisphere, but like the rest of the Arctic, it is warming up fast, so who knows how long it can wear that crown. Okay, so again, this is out of a scientific journal called McLean's, and this article is Say Goodbye Canada. The North Pole is moving to Russia, and this came out on April 16th. So also note, family, that folks are literally taking their compasses. I have to check mine, too, because the last time I checked, it has definitely moved. You can see it on the compass. I haven't checked it in a couple of months, but you can also, if you watch the position of where the sun rises and the sun sets and how the sun moves across the sky, you can totally see that something has changed. And I think it was you, Brother Sean, that brought up that the sun, you said at high noon, don't go over your head no more. I think that was you and I having that little conversation. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it doesn't, because it used to be like above your head, high noon. And I checked it a couple of times. I'm like, damn, he's absolutely right. It's still to the side. Something is really, really going on. And it has changed drastically from last year, because I have 2 security cameras that would catch the sun rising and the sun setting. I didn't put them there on purpose. That just so happened to be the case. I ain't had it catch it near time, and matter of fact, none this year. I'll have to go back and check the logs, but I know for a fact not so far this year. So yes, something has definitely been changing. Mama Earth is definitely shifting. All right, so I'll pause, Brother Sean, if you had something to put on it. If not,
it's just that I found it interesting that they mentioned about sovereignty. Something is.
Yes.
I mean, it's an individual thing.
Yeah.
Because as far as for any country or nation truly having sovereignty, that was done away with war.
Yes.
So,
yes.
I mean,
yeah, and I agree. And the fact that she said about, the idea of borders, that needs to be done away with, and collective group thinking. So, they're talking in code. They know exactly what's going on. They know exactly why it is going on. Again, it is the cyclical pole shift, but the difference is this time that it's also cleanup time, because the vibration of Mother Earth is raising as well. Okay. So very interesting. Now, the last one, and then we're going to move into tonight's topic, is Planet 9. This is off of this out of the UK. I think Express is out of the UK, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it is. Express. This publication is out of the UK. And it says, Planet 9 shock. Astronomers explain effect mysterious Planet 9 has on entire solar system. So it says Planet 9 is a theoretical large body on the fringes of the solar system past Pluto, the Kepler belt, and beyond the gaze of Earth's telescopes. Okay, so now I'm just going to stop, because we have been talking about the system of planet Nibiru for quite some time now, and how it has its own 3,600-year cycle. And with that particular planet, it also brings its set of solar systems with it. All right? So it is much closer than what they're saying with Pluto, because now, folks on YouTube are showing you in the sky these different planetary bodies, and sometimes they can't chemtrail them fast enough, and you'll see like the blue planet, you'll see a red one, you'll see one that looks like it's on fire, etc. Okay, and a couple of people have caught like 5 or 6 of them in the sky, and even when it's getting so close that even with them chemtrailing and throwing up the artificial lights up there and mirrors to try to hide it, you can still see the outline of it, okay? So when they're talking in code about this, quote, quote, Planet 9, and it comes with its own set of solar systems, that's the system that they're talking about. And it's much closer than what they're saying. So it says, although Planet 9 is yet to be directly observed, bullshit, because, we can look up in the sky if they keep it clear enough and see the stuff ourselves. But anyway, evidence of its existence is mounting. Astronomer Michael Brown of the University of Southern California believes the mysterious planet is 20 times further away than Neptune, but is similar in size to the frozen planet. The astronomer is also certain scientists will soon hone in on Planet 9's location, and when they do, the planet's gravitational effect on the rest of the system will be revealed. Speaking to Linda Moulton, how on Coast to Coast AM radio, the expert said in the inner part of the solar system, inner being the part we know of, Planet 9 has no effect whatsoever on the inner planets, and you can figure out why. It's actually 7 times the mass of Earth, and it's 500 times further away from the sun than Earth is. Jupiter, on the other hand, is 300 times the mass of Earth, and it's only 5 times further from the sun than Earth is. So Jupiter has a tremendous effect on the planet in the solar system, and nobody sits around and worries about Jupiter suddenly going to come to destroy us. Okay, whatever, lady. Planet 9 is really far away and quite a bit smaller than Jupiter. Its effect is really minimum. The one effect that it does have is that over 4 billion years it is capable of slowly tilting the orbits of the planets, but even that is a very, very minor. I can't with these people. Be MF and consistent. Right. Now, you just said it don't have no effect, but yeah, Rom, it will tilt the orbit. Get it together, people. Okay, so the astronomer then says there is a possibility the mysterious planet will be confirmed. So this is old. They must have reprinted this as early as 2019. Oh yeah. So news flash. Folks been catching the shit on YouTube big time. Okay, so that was, they call themselves giving you their soft disclosure. That spanking asses. All right, so let me see. So it says the astronomers have since focused the crux of their research on locating the elusive planet. U.S. Space Agency NASA caught on to the research in 2017, saying it is now harder to imagine our solar system without a Planet 9 than with one. Okay, then. Dr. Brown said, I'm always very optimistic. He said his partner is more pessimistic, and so you should take my optimism with a grain of salt and then take his pessimism with a grain of salt. He thinks it will take us another 10 years. I think it will take 1 year. Okay, so there they are talking cryptic as the MF. So the one that's optimistic saying he thinks within 1 year. Okay, so they're giving you code. Now, if you look at the rendition drawings that they are showing in this article, this is the shit people have recorded up in the sky. Literally. Live videos. The one they show looked like a planet that's on fire. The brother Rap the News. He tracks this stuff pretty closely. He does some good work. Now, he is on the religious side, so you get past that, to each his own. No disrespect to that brother. But he literally has several videos of, he calls it the Planet Hell. That's what he calls it, Planet Hell. Because it's literally like on fire. Okay? And they're literally showing in this article renditions of what Rap the News is calling Planet Hell. They're showing the blue planet that's showing up. So they need to go on somewhere with this bull mess. Let me see. All right. I'm just trying to see what else. So that's that, family. I'm not going to read no more of their bull crap. But anyway, this actually must have been a reprint. No, they said they published it in March 22nd, 2019. It just showed up in my feed the other day. But it's out of the publication Express out of the UK, and it's called Planet 9 Shots. Astronomers explain effect mysterious Planet 9 has on the entire solar system, okay, which they never did explain the effects, the true effects of the solar system. They just talked in code. So, you know, that's the soft disclosure, family, that the solar system that we've been talking about, and folks call it the Nibiru solar system. We've been telling you all this for 3-4 years now. It has a 3,600-year cycle, and that it carries its own solar system, so meaning several planets, suns, plural, and moons as well. And these are some of the things that are being documented in the sky just by regular YouTube viewers. So 2 good channels to check it out is Wrap the News and Donnie of Daytona. He does a good job catching the double sun. One day he literally videotaped 4 suns because he has a lot of heavy equipment with his drones that can get up above the chemtrails. And then he just recently documented 4 additional planetary planets as well. Okay, so it's here. They're lying through their teeth. It's here because people are literally documenting it. All right, Brother Sean. So I'll pause before I go into it in case you had something to put on it. Otherwise, we're going to jump right into the surnames so we can move on to the main topic.
Yeah, we can get into the surnames. That pretty much is. But moving on.
Yeah. So they throwing out these little hints. So they just gonna wait till the shit is right up on us and have folks shitting on themselves, having heart attacks. So just get prepared, and you start watching that sky for yourself and do a little research so you won't be shocked. Because they damn sure ain't gonna come out and tell you. All right, so
yeah,
the
but
last.
You know,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, brother.
But you know, when mainstream media start catching on to things, or actually start admitting more truths and going away from the current narrative that they're pushing, they trying to cover all their bases. They trying to say somebody trying to step up to have people start believing them again.
That's a good point.
Because Trump then destroyed the media.
Yeah, he has been showing his orange ass and playing a game of cat and mouse. So absolutely. All right, family. So when we went into the surnames last week, tracing the first melanated congressional House of Representatives and Senators right after the Civil War, they call it the Reconstruction period. Okay, so what I did was went and researched the surnames to tie them back to Europe. And as we discovered when we came out of our series, The Black Nobility and the America, those surnames, and most of us carry those surnames today, are from the melanated lineage of Europe, okay? Because as, who was that? Was it Franklin that said that, or one of them? that all of Africa, Asia,
Franklin.
Europe, Franklin, I thought that was him. All of Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Americas are black. Okay? So that means all of the European kings, King James, King Charles, all of them, lotta, they were, quote, quote, melanated, a.k.a. black. Okay? And we also talked about how King Charles was the one that gave the okay for that Windsor name to be used as a seat of power. And so he was the one that gave the okay for the Caucasian lineage to start sitting on the throne. Okay? So the Caucasian rule over in Europe really did not happen until the late 1800s, and really it wasn't until the 1900s. Okay, and we even went into what really World War I and World War II was about also. It was changing over from those melanated kingdoms, putting the Caucasian face on those kingdoms. Okay. Now, although we still suspect that some of the Caucasian lineage that sits in these positions today, some of them are mixed with the bloodline of those black nobilities. Okay, so the last name that we left off on, and I brought up a question, was Turner. Okay, so that Turner name came over on ship York, 1739/1740. And I asked, so then who really was Nat Turner? Okay, so you all know the story of Nat Turner. All right, so we're going to pick back up with the 42nd Josiah Thomas Walls out of Florida, a Republican. He was in the House, and he held that seat from 1871 to 1873. And that particular Walls surname came over pretty early, 1697. Okay, now the origins of that name, they're putting it back to Dutch. And that would make sense because we know that the Dutch were one of the first to do business over here in that New York, New Jersey area as they were trading fur, or the fur trade. All right? So it says the ancestor of the name Walls date back to the Anglo-Saxon. Okay? And when we did that Black Nobility series, we also uncovered that Anglo-Saxon, because when you think of Anglo and you think of Saxon, you think of Caucasian. That is not the origin of that. That still ties back to that black nobility bloodline. So it says the ancestors of the name Walls date back to the Anglo-Saxon tribes of Britain. The name is derived from when the Walls family lived near a stone-built wall. Walls is a local surname which belongs to the category of hereditary surnames. Other type of local surnames, topographic surnames, which could be given to a person who lived beside any physical features such as hill, stream, church, or type of tree. Let me see what else. Members of the Walls family were established in Gloucestershire prior to the Norman conquest of England in 1066. By the time of the conquest, they were made landlords in that country. Okay, so that's where that surname comes from. So Josiah Thomas Walls, that is his particular lineage. Okay, but that particular name goes across Dutch, English, German, and Irish. All right, and that still lines up perfectly when we did the series on the black nobility. Next name, this is Richard Harvey Kane. He served as a House of Representative, Republican. Now notice, these gentlemen are all Republicans so far. Okay, so Pete Gaines, they were Republican. Remember, they were the first, right after the Civil War, to sit in these seats of House and Senate. They called it the Reconstruction era. And he served in the House of Representatives from 1873 to 1875. Okay, so they're saying the origin of him, of that, what name did I just say, y'all? I'm losing it. I did say Richard Harvey Kane, right? Okay, hopefully that's what I said, y'all. He's out of South Carolina. He was out of South Carolina when he held that House seat. That Kane name, now notice that Kane name, because remember, King James said that he is a Hebrew. And a lot of these names that I am reading are biblical names. Josiah Thomas. So now this particular man has the last name of Cain. So we're going to talk about that. So that last name Cain came over in 1639 via Massachusetts. Okay. They're saying the name is English origin, but it also has ties to Dutch, Germany, and Irish. Okay, so that makes sense as well. Okay, let's go to the next one. John Roy Lynch. He was a Republican. He served in the House from 1873 to 1875. That Lynch name first came over in 1638 in Virginia via Jeremiah Lynch. Okay. Now this name, the Anglo-Norman conquest of Ireland, so this name is Ireland origin. I'm trying to see if there's anything else that will be of interest. Surnames such as Lynch were taken from the name or place or geographical feature of where the person lived. Okay, so give me some more on Lynch. I don't think they're going to give us any more on Lynch. Okay, the Lynch family originally lived in some location which is no longer known. The original the original form of the Norman surname, so meaning out of the Norman conquest of Ireland, the original form of the Norman surname Lynch was DeLynch, and it was spelled Lench. However, there is also a native Irish family named Lynch. This surname, which was originally Longside, and I could be pronouncing this wrong, is derived from Gaelic word, which means mariner. Okay, so remember when we talked about that series, how a lot of the melanated folks in Europe, specifically Ireland, were pushed over to the Americas. They were forced to leave Ireland. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mariner.
Mariner? Okay, Mariner.
No, I'm just saying, think about what that is.
What do you think is has something to do with shipping or water?
Exactly. Mariner, maritime law, more.
Right. So remember
they said they were the
that,
first to navigate the waters. So
yeah,
anybody else that's calling themselves a mariner or anything else like that, I mean, Alcir, he did say that more is a derogative term. So, but considering it's associated with water, mariner,
right.
and but they claim everything to got an M and an R in it, so it's naturally more, not mariner.
Right. Yeah, that's a good call out on that. So yeah, that's what they're saying that Lynch name meant. But I found it interesting that when they were saying de Lynch, that reminds me of French, because usually that DE in front of something reminds me of French. And then the other interesting thing about this name tracing to Ireland, we know what happened in Ireland, that there was a massacre of melanated people, and as well as they were shipped over to the Americas and Barbados and Jamaica. So when you hear of people in Barbados and Jamaica with them, the different surnames that sound American, that's where they're coming from. Okay, and Barbados and Jamaica, it's going to be melanated people there. Okay, but when you hear of them having those last names, that's because their ancestors originated from Europe, and specifically those two places, Ireland. A lot of them were shipped over to Ireland. Okay. All right. So we have Alonzo Jacob Rancière. Okay, Republican. He served in the House from 1873 to 1875. Excuse me. His particular ancestor, Jan Jarrett Rancière, landed in Pennsylvania in 1739. Now, I don't know why I didn't pull the rest of the information on Rancière. Sorry about that, child. Okay, James Thomas Rapier, Republican, served in the House 1873-1875. Now, he had feudal relatives come over. Joe, John, Robert, and Nathaniel Thomas. They settled in Virginia in 1621. So, and now notice that Thomas name, that's a biblical name as well. But anyway, the roots of the surname Thomas lie in the rugged landscape of Wales. Thomas was a popular medieval given name throughout Europe, coming from the popular biblical name. It is ultimately derived from the Aramaic personal name meaning twin. Now, I found that shit fascinating. Yeah, isn't that a trip? I'm like, whoa. So anyhow, prior to the Norman conquest, this name was rarely found, but by the 13th and 14th centuries, it became extremely common in Britain. So it's saying that it was, they're tracing it back to Wales, the 5th through the 10th centuries, and tracing it back to some lord in South Wales. And so it's just basically saying that that's still a commonplace name in modern periods. We know that. So that's that on that. The other thing that I want to say is the surname Rapier was first found in Sussex, where they held a family seat from early times, and their first records appeared on the census rolls taken by the ancient kings of Britain to determine the rate of taxation of their subjects. Okay, so I found that interesting, that even back then they stankin' asses was doing census. Okay, real interesting on that part. All right, so the next one is Jeremiah Harrelson, Republican, served in the House, 1875 to 1877. His ancestors, Adria Harris, who arrived in Virginia in 1621. And so they're pegging that name to English or England, trying to see if there's anything else in here that we can pull. All right, now this is interesting, family. Early origins of the Harris name. Now, we know a lot of Harrelsons, okay? So, and that's another thing we need to discuss. Y'all probably know this, but for those that are new to surnames, anybody with that son on the end of their name, S-O-N, that first part of the name, it really means you're the son of John, okay? So Harrelson are the sons of Harold, okay? So that Harris last name also is a part of this lineage, okay? So just to give you some background so you can start looking at these surnames in a different light. So the surname Harris was first found in Normandy, where Harrises and his brothers were in 1022 prohibited by King Robert of France from making inroads on their estates of a neighboring abbey. Henricus was father of Anselin de Beaumont, who in 1086 held a baron in Nottinghamshire. All right. So it said his sons, and I'm skipping over some of this to y'all. His sons quickly spread through Britain as seen by Robert Fritz Harris, who was mentioned in the charter. Damn, y'all better go them goddamn charters. In the charter of Barbary Abbey, executed by Henry II. Trying to see what else. Okay, and it's just saying that they were also some of the Harris, and they're given different spellings of this Harris name, also family, back up in the day. So we know it today as Harris. So Harrison is tied to the name Harris that we know today. Back in the day, in like 1022 to 1130, Harris was like Herice. And then let me see what else way it was spelled. Damn, I seen. Herez was another spelling. They showed up, William Harris showed up in the 13th century in Wiltshire. And then what else? That's about it on that. Okay, so see up here, let's see, it's elevated command. Okay. All right, so it just points back to one of the Harrises is given the title of Esquire. So that's that. All right, so the next name is John Adams Hyman. Okay, now I also kind of chuckle to myself because a lot of these quote founding fathers and the rest of that crew has a lot of these last surnames also. So the lie was told that the melanated folks in the Americas got their surnames from slave owners, Caucasians. That's not true. We've done the research, got the receipts. It is the opposite. Those surnames that we all carry today are from melanated lineage. So the Caucasians carry melanated people's last surname, not the other way around. Because remember, all of Europe, Asia, Africa, and America was black. All right, so this is John Adams Hyman, served as in the House of Representatives as a Republican from 1875 to 1877. His ancestor, Margaret Hyman, arrived in New York in 1739. That particular Hyman name dates back to the Anglo-Saxon tribes of Britain. Let me see. And some say that the name goes back all the way to 1066. All right, so the next name on the list is Charles Edmund Nash, Republican, House of Representatives, 1875 to 1877. His ancestors, Thomas Edmund, settled in Virginia in 1654. That Edmund name ties back to the Anglo-Saxon tribes of Britain. Let me see. Oh, now this is interesting. I got to read this. The surname Edmund was first found in Oxfordshire, where the first on record of the family was Edmund of Woodstock. So now we know where Woodstock came from, y'all. Earl of Kent, 1301 to 1330, youngest son of Edward I by his second wife, Margaret of France. Born at Woodstock, he received from his father a revenue of 7,000 marks a year. So I don't know how much mark, what that equates to today. But anyhow, it is thought that Edward I was to confer the rich earldom of Cornwall either on Edmund or on his elder brother Thomas of Brotherton. But the accession of Edward II negated that possibility. Edward II made Edmund Lord of the castle and honor of Knaresborough in 1319, and the next year granted him land, family, of the value of 2,000 marks a year. Okay, so also in the series that we did, and we was using the brothers' book, The Negro Question Part 4 and The Negro Question Part 6, he has pictures of Edward I in that book. Clearly a melanated man, and if I remember correctly, he has on his little crown, I think he's like copper color, if I remember correctly, and got his little fro sticking out the sides of the crown, if I remember that picture correctly. All right, next one. Robert Smalls served in the House as a Republican, 1875 to 1877. His ancestor, Edward Small, age 19. So now this was one I found interesting because it said that name landed in America in 1892. But yet, Robert Smalls, he was out of South Carolina, was serving in as a House of Representatives. So I don't know what happened there, how the dude got over here, or how long that Smalls name has really been over here. All right, let me see. Oh, so this particular name, that makes sense. Why they probably on the down low, because they are saying that name goes back to the Hebrides or Hebrides Island, were known in ancient times as the Kingdom of Dalrada. The name Smalls evolved there as a nickname for a person who was small in stature. I can see that. Melanated people always giving somebody a damn nickname. So that makes about sense. Okay, so then they just kind of called out that sometimes these surnames came not only from where people physically live, but also kind of some physical characteristics of them as well. And so they're also saying that the name was documented in 1066. So that's about it on that. All right, so the next one is James Edward O'Hare served in the House from 1883 to 1885 out of North Carolina. His ancestor, Charles O'Hara, settled in Boston in 1716. So we should know that O'Hara name is Ireland, right? So it's an Irish surname linked to the long Gaelic heritage of the island nation. Okay, let me see. That's about it on that one. All right, but it did say that name, that O'Hara name, held a family seat in ancient times. So notice a lot of these surnames tied to these House of Representatives that got these seats right after the Civil War and what they're calling the Reconstructive era. So history would have you to believe that these are former slaves, right? That's what history would have you to believe. But as we are going through these names, knowing the information we know, you can see that they tie back to having a relationship with the seats of the black nobility over in Europe. So either they are direct descendants of the black nobility of Europe, or they were in their court, or on their payroll some type of way, or, assigned titles by these different kingdoms over in Europe. So in other words, these names have connections to what they're calling the Old World Europe, which was a black melanated kingdom. All right, so the next one is Henry Plummer Chatham, and Republican out of the House from 1889 to 1891. His ancestor, Francis Plummer, landed in New England in 1633. Okay, so they're tying that name back to Anglo-Saxon, and so they're saying the name was derived from an occupation. All right, and so interestingly enough, what I found in here, it says the surname Plummer was first found in Durham, where they held a family seat. The family name Plummer first appeared on the early census rolls taken by the early kings of Britain to determine the taxation of their subjects. Okay, so notice Plummer, surname found in Durham. Okay, Durham, North Carolina, dude that sat on the seat. Henry Plummer sat on the House from 1889 to 1891. He was representing North Carolina. All right, here we go. Next name, John Mercer Langston served in the House from 1889 to 1891. His ancestor, Andrew Mercer, settled in Barbados in 1634. The Mercer surname derives from the Old French mercier, in turn from the late Latin mercarius, both meaning merchandise. Oh, hell to the no, now I didn't straight learn something. So that Mercer name is a derivative for merchandise. Ain't that about a blip? So in Middle English, Mercer was an occupational name for a trader who dealt in textile. Interestingly, not all of the family immigrated to England during the conquest or shortly thereafter. Okay, so what the hell are they trying to say? So I guess Hubert Mercer or Mercier in Normandy back in 1180. All right, so what else we got here? Without a doubt, okay, wait a minute. The surname Mercer was found in Northumberland, but as frequent occupational name. Many records were found in various parts of ancient English. Okay, so it's saying it showed up on some tax rolls in 1273. Let me see. There's some meat in here I wanted to give y'all. All right. Okay, this is what I just want to show y'all, how far back the financial systems go. Without a doubt, Scotland holds the most history for this family name. One of the first records there was William Mercer, or Le Mercier, who witnessed 2 charters in favor of Abbey of Kelso in the 1200s. Mercer was party with 23 others to a bond given by Alexander the 11th to Henry III in 1244 to keep the peace. He had grants of till coultry from Walter, son of Allen. His son and successor of that name resigned his lands into the king's hands in 1261. A curious story of 2 Mercers appeared in English record, which throws an interesting sidelight on the law of the period. In 1279, a man unknown was housed at Morpeth with Geoffrey and William, the Mercers of Scotland. The stranger rose through the night and stole their goods to the value of 30s and instantly fled to Cottonwood, followed by William, who slew him in his flight. Both withdrew themselves and are not discredited. They may return if they will, but their chattels are confiscated for flight. Apparently, it was unlawful to pursue a thief with hue and cry and do summary justice on him if found with the goods in his possession. The Mercers erred in not pursuing the thief in their recognized ways. Okay, so anyhow, all right, so that's on that Mercer name. So now we know that the term merchandise is a derivative of that surname Mercer. So the second part of his name, and I also found it interesting that a lot of these men carry 2 surnames. So I am assuming, now this is just me only assuming, that they were carrying both of the lineage of their mother's surname and their father's surname, okay, which we were supposed to always do over here in the Americas, so you can always have a trace back to your lineage. Okay, so women, you're supposed to be hyphenating your names. Okay, so folks can always know your origin on your mother's side or as well. So really, you probably should be carrying 3 names: your mom's surname, your father's surname, and then your husband's surname. But anyway, so the second part of his surname, Langston, his relative John Langston arrived in Virginia in 1635. So notice all of these folks are hitting that Virginia shore that lines up perfectly with the Exodus, or as they were shipped over to the Americas. The main ports of entry were Virginia, some in Massachusetts, very little in that South Carolina, North Carolina region, but you also had in the Americas the Barbados and Jamaica as well. So anyway, the Langston name dates back to its origins is the Anglo-Saxon. Let's see, anything else interesting? The name, it's a cardinal that held that name, Cardinal Stephen Langston, back in the 1100s, 1150, who was the Archbishop of Canterbury until his death in 1228. This the T. So I copied and pasted this. I didn't get a chance to read all of it. So it says, he was a critical player in the dispute between King John of England and Pope Innocent III, which ultimately led to the issuing. Oh, hell no. Okay, so which ultimately led to the issuing of the Magna Carta in 1215. Damn, now. So that Langston name, that shit ain't no joke. So let me back up. Just so, anybody out there with the Langston surname, that name hit the Americas through John Langston via Virginia in 1635. Okay, it ties back to Anglo-Saxon. Now here's the T, y'all. One of the earliest records of the name was Cardinal Stephen Langston. I guess they're given, he lived from 1150 to 1228. Okay, but he served as an Archbishop of Canterbury, 1207 until his death in 1228. He was a critical player in the dispute between King John of England and Pope Innocent III, which ultimately led to the issuing of the Magna Carta in 1215, a manner which has remained to this present day, and the inheritance of this house can be found at Langton by Spilsby. Walter D. Langton, 1296 to 1322, Bishop of Coventry, Lord High Treasurer of England, and a favorite of Edward I. So this particular Langston name, y'all, is highly closely tied to that crown and tied to, I want to say, the Catholic Church. Very, very interesting. All right, so it's saying in the 20th of Edward I, John Byron claimed free warrant here and right up his wife, Alicia, heir of, what the hell that got to do with anything? Oh, okay, they're just saying another branch of that family was found in Lancashire. Okay. What else in this name? Okay. All right, so that's that Langston name. Okay, so anybody holding that Langston last name, that's pretty deep. Some deep ties there. All right, so here we go. The next name is Thomas Ezekiel Miller, and this is going to have to be the last one, y'all. We'll have to pick up next week. Served in the House as a Republican, 1889 to 1891. His ancestor, Benjamin Miller, arrived in Bermuda, 1635. The origins of that name is Scottish. And what else? Okay, so it was saying that the name was recorded as one who worked at a mill. So it's an occupational name. That's the Miller name. Okay, so we'll pick back up. No, we only have one more for the house. And then next week, y'all, I'll do the first melanated presidents before George Washington next week. So this is the last of the particular first House of Representatives after the Civil War who were all melanated. So the last one is George Henry White. He served as a Republican in the House, 1897, 1899. His ancestors, Anthony White, came over to New England in 1634. That name, White, is attributed to English. Now, y'all going to trip out. This is not a coincidence, family. They're saying the White surname was first found in Durham. But we must look into South Warnboro and Southampton for the most interesting story about the family. The church is very ancient with a fine Norman arch at the entrance, and the chancel is a curious monument to Sir Thomas White and his family. Tradition says that Queen Elizabeth, when residing at Oldham, rode over to the house, the Manor House here, and after partaking of breakfast with the above-mentioned Thomas White, knighted him in his own saloon. All right, so that ancient surname, that surname was first found in Durham. George Henry White, who served in the House of Representatives in 1897 to 1899, was representing North Carolina. Okay, so cannot be a coincidence. All right, so those are the surnames of the House of Representatives. I think were all of them House of Representatives and Senators of the Reconstructive era that happened right after the Civil War. We'll conclude out that surname section next week when we do the first black/melanated presidents before George Washington. Okay, so I'll pause, Brother Sean, in case you got something to put on.
Yeah, you notice they all done 2-year terms, strict 2-year terms.
Yeah.
One term.
Yep.
Also, all foreigners, for one.
Yep.
I guess that's the system that the Moors claim to have put in place.
That's right.
And taught them everything about it so that they could govern in their place while they sleep.
Right. Right. Yeah, isn't that interesting? I'm like, okay, all we have to use is common sense here, people. If we know that the story of slavery did not happen the way they're telling us, if we know that most of us was not taken from Africa and brought over here on no ship, that most of us were indigenous to this land, and that melanated kings sat on thrones, and they were the ones that came over and started chopping up the territories of land, and who was warring with the indigenous people for the land. So Europe started fighting over the land. So between the Dutch, the French, and then you got to throw the Spanish up in there, and then England and them all over here warring over the American territories. But in the meantime, as Europe was having their own little personal wars, they started shipping their folks over to the Americas, and so therefore they started marrying into the indigenous people's bloodlines as well. Okay, so it's no coincidence that after that Civil War, that these quote quote senators and House of Representatives sat in those seats. No coincidence, because next week we're going to go over the first melanated, aka black president. I think it was 8 of them before George Washington. So these particular Europeans from that black nobility bloodline, and their people, their mans and them, they boys and friends that, sat in their particular courts, and they gave them all of them titles. They were the ones that held those first seats on the quote quote government or corporations that was set up for the quote quote founding fucking fathers. They taught the founding fathers how those corporations should be ran. All of it was set up as corporations out the gate. Because remember, as these particular kingdoms were going around conquering lands, whoever was responsible for running the corporation has to pay the taxes back to the crown of those particular civilizations, all right? So that's why you even see the charters that are issued for each state by like King Charles and all of that, carving up territories. And if you go back and look at the records of land grants, so meaning them giving away indigenous people's doggone land to their boys and them, that was a prize, but they still had to pay taxes on it. And in the meantime, all of this, they have records for that. And they keep records for that because they don't want to be cheated. The king and them want their damn tax money. Okay? So none of this shit that we see today, as far as these corporations, mass as government, none of that shit was new. It was set up from the start that way as the land was being conquered and taken from the indigenous people. Now, did some of the indigenous people agree to some of that fuckery? Absolutely, some did. They was kicking it up, chi-chi-and and kiki-and all the way back in the 1500s when they was making motherfucking agreements with the Dutch to come here to do fur trading. Okay, and the Iroquois Nation, they look at that as a proud thing, admits to doing business and to, quote, quote, helping form the government. Okay, but their help of the Iroquois nation forming the government was really these melanated Europeans that had married into the Iroquois nation lineage that went to set up that those governments. Okay, so just a little thought, but thanks for that, Brother Sean.
Oh yeah, as far as for them being Republicans, people forget. I mean, pledge allegiance saying to the republic for which it stands.
For which it stands. Mm-hmm.
It's never been about democracy where people scream for that. It's never worked. Nowhere in history has democracy ever worked.
Nope.
This system, period, has never worked.
It never worked. No.
Because if people really want to think about it, I mean, you could take this all the way back to the Roman Senate.
Absolutely.
Because he did say they were the Romans.
That's
so this is still their bloodline we talking about.
Still them. Yep, them and that fuck shit. Absolutely. Because, and I see you, Brother 832, I'm coming to you. Of course, because it's against natural law. They're not supposed to be going around claiming ownership of mama, and specifically of a man claiming ownership of mama, because land is not passed down through a man. It's passed down through the woman's bloodline. So their whole Roman system is against natural law. And that's why it never works. And that's why their kingdoms always fail, why they always bankrupt, and they just keep going to the next set of land after they done fucked something up. So after they done excavated resources, bankrupt the people, and then in the meantime, the people done chased their stinking asses out of the places because they was about fed up with their slavery debt-ridden system. They just go to the next place and reset up the same shop. So absolutely, it's the same shit all over again. And that's why we keep telling you that nothing is new under the sun, and this is all still Roman, Canaan law. Unnatural law. Let me make that clear. So, very good point, Brother Sean. Okay, so let me bring on Brother 832. 832, your line is open.
Rhonda, my sister from another mister. Sean, my brother from another mother.
Indeed, bro.
Indeed. Uh-oh, did he drop?
Wow, they ain't even let him get started. Oh, there you go.
Okay.
When y'all were talking,
okay,
can you hear me?
Go. Yeah, we can hear you now. We thought you dropped.
Feathers up.
Feathers up.
Perpetrating parasitic frauds down.
Indeed, down.
Now, when you were, I had to call you because you dropped a bomb on me.
Uh-oh.
Japan, 80? On my paternal grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Smalls is a direct ancestor. My paternal grandmother compiled a diary / journal, if you will, that I'm going to have to go through an intriguing excavation or extradition from the public library here in H-Town. However, during Black History Month, there was an interesting article that popped up on my phone that referred to Robert Small as the Black 007. I don't know if you know
Really?
some of the folklore and the legendary story of Robert Smalls. Just to get to the quick, he absconded away with his slave master's ship. He was a tugboat individual that essentially told his family members, meet me down by the pier and I'm going to spirit you away. And he was so successful at it, he turned the boat over to the Northern forces, who then summarily turned it back to him to be a captain to return in the fight against the Confederacy. In addition, at some future point in his adult exploits, not just being elected to the local South Carolina legislature, but as you have said, was also elected to the House of Representatives, he bought the quote-unquote slave master's mansion out of his being bankrupt, so to speak. And I think one part of the legend is the mistress of the house was so forlorn and lost in her spirit that he allowed her to exist on the property until her death. But, I have to do some more fact-finding on that. But that's essentially what was actually reported in the public record. And as I said in this particular article, they characterized him as a black 007. The other thing that I will point out, if I am not mistaken, the Moorish Sundry Act is specific to South Carolina, although all the Carolinas originated out of the Virginia Charter. I'm going to read something to you about the Virginia Company.
Yes.
This is on ushistory.org. If you want to Google it, look it up yourself. When I Googled the Virginia Company, it was the first thing that populated up in the search engine. It's referred to as a joint stock company. And the Virginia Company is what was chartered by King James in 1606. Let's repeat and put back into context that he did a fact-finding journey in that year to the so-called New World. And so between 1606 and the charter of the Virginia Company was the creation of Jamestown, Virginia. First paragraph, joint stock companies. Compared with other European nations in 1600, England was relatively poor, as new agricultural technologies made fewer farmers necessary. The poor multiplied in the streets of cities such as London and Bristol, much to the dismay of the wealthier class. The impoverished were an increasingly burdensome presence and problem. A pain to Spain. Richard Hakluyt, Hakluyt, a 16th century geographer interested in explorers and travel narratives, suggested to Queen Elizabeth that New World colonies could serve two purposes. First, they could challenge Spanish domination of the New World. Second, the ever-growing poorer classes could be transported there, easing England's population depression. Now, have you heard the news story this morning that you're probably familiar with James Wood, the actor? He's very infamous, if not famous, for playing major villains and evil characters in many movies. But he's starting to make a name for himself as being a pseudo-white supremacist or apologist for white nationalism. Did you see the Twitter incident about him retweeting a photo claiming the first 100 slaves were Irish children sent 6 months prior to the Africans in August of 1619? He's having fact-finding come from white folks are fact-finding him. An Irish historian said those 100 children were not Irish, they were English. In the fact-finding, he also stressed they were sent, and you've already discovered and covered this when you went through the black nobility, for example. But they, as indentured servants, were bound. Now, here's the intriguing thing. The ages were from 8 to 16. So this is even, not even 18-year-olds, from 8 to 16. 100 of them sent from England, bound to their masters, I'm using air quotes here, till the age of majority, which they reference as 21, for the females to the age of majority or when married. And you know how early they married them and made breed mares out of white men. So they're trying to, again, now here's the interesting thing. Now this is for you Caucasian listeners that are bothering to open your mind and listen to Truth Uncompromised, whether you challenge the sister or not. It's, as she points out weekly, it's about the truth. It doesn't matter or where you stand in proximity to it. It's whether or not you are a truth seeker. The fact remains that these people are compelled to diminish and dismiss us, the original people, the melanated folks, the people who are referred to as scourge, niggers, black, colored, mulatto, octoroon, quadroon, whatever. There has been constant denigration, mischaracterization, and renaming of us to the detriment of our existence. Then they have the gall to deny having done it. They have the unmitigated gall to deny benefiting from it. And now that they've raised the specter of reparations, which is a bogus argument, just as Sean has pointed out, at best it would be restoration, not reparation. Because first of all, you can't repair none of the shit that you've done. And you're not even Christian. I'm using air quotes here as I say that. The same Christianity you imposed upon our ancestors in slavery, in shackles. You're not even available nor prepared for redemption, because the first requirement of redemption is acknowledgement of doing wrong, right? And I'm not talking about no goddamn piss poor ass polity. It's also for you to redress the wrong. Then, and notice how they always run up in us and ask for forgiveness, so that they can then go and sin no more and then continue to perpetuate the sinful behavior. So they love listening to these chicken bone sucking preachers that holler about how they're good Christian brothers and how we are forgiving people, which, by the way, has nothing to do with religion. It has to do with character. Okay? And since we are the original human beings, and since any good parent, even at their own self-sacrifice, will care for the most disgusting, criminal, and errant child, will they not? To the degree of even maybe putting themselves on the auction block, on the executioner's chair, or to the hangman's rope. Kind of like lynching in America. You know, at their own self-deprecation, degradation, and in many cases, mutilation. Okay? And I want to wind it up with this, my sister, because this is what's compelling to me. No matter what we agree or disagree upon, everybody and their mama around the world, whether they come under the skirt of Statue of Liberty or through Angel Island or have a wetback crossing the Rio Grande, all agree to come here and hold us in derision and contempt. Correct? They then all agree to mischaracterize who we are, where we're from, knowing all along we're the original inhabitants of this land. And then in the political chicanery in today's contemporary socialist America, because the socialism that goes on in America is for white skin privilege at black bodies and expense. Okay, so that's the socialism that's going on. The capitalism was turning our humanity into property. That's what the 3/5 clause is about. That's what the whole right. If you know, the Declaration of Independence was not for life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. The original one that was scratched out was ownership of property. And what was the number one property in American experience? The original inhabitants of the land. So when we don't deal with those facts going forward, there will never be an intelligent discourse, one. Two, there can never be redemption for the soul of America for its original sin, because there are blasphemous, and they are hypocrites, and they are abject liars. And finally, it is incumbent upon us, because our children, our great-grandchildren, our great-grandchildren are suffering the demise of this lie and this fraud. And I yield. Thank you for the time, my sister.
Indeed, indeed. Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother.
That's what's up.
And I'm glad that, you know, your particular piece of your heritage, you got a little bit more insight, and I can't disagree with you at all on anything that you said. I find it interesting. James Woods' old ass to put out a tweet or whatever the hell. I'm sorry, what you say, brother?
James Wood, he's part of the MAGA movement. He's one of the only celebrities that Trump really deal with like that.
Okay.
He's one of the only ones that's probably clean. He ain't done the things that the rest of them has done.
See, I don't follow it, so.
And I believe his bringing up that about the children being brought over.
Yeah.
That's tying off into that whole mud flood thing where they was talking about these, children's trains and, going back to, I guess you could mention Notre Dame, because ain't that where, no, it's not Notre Dame. Remember the little movie that came on where the white preacher, he had all these boys, and they was named after him and whatever his parish was, whoever boys.
Yeah, I can't remember that movie. I see it just as clear as day, too. Yeah, I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember the specific name of it. It's old, too. It's in black and white, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
but what I'm getting to is these children with quote-unquote masters, or as they call these people nowadays, handlers, he's bringing out the fact that this child trafficking has been going on for thousands of years.
For a long time. Okay.
It's nothing new.
Okay.
That's just my take on it, I mean.
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't think of it from that angle with the child trafficking, because that mud flood community, they are saying that a lot of the white children were brought over to the Americas in the role of an indentured servant to clean up a lot of debris and all of this particular jazz, but I also thought when Brother 832 was reading that as well, that it also goes back to putting it out there to the Caucasian folks. You didn't come over here the way you think you came over here.
Right.
If your ancestors were here prior to and I'm even going to go back to 1776. I'm going to be motherfucking generous. I'm going to be generous. And it's probably not to the late 1800s, but okay, I'm going to give you to 1776. If your ancestors came over before 1776, they were indentured servants.
Exactly.
Bottom line. So, folks are throwing it out there, and this is not, James Wood is not the first one, although he mixed the African slave narrative in there, which we know that's a bold-faced lie, but whatever. This was brought up also about indentured servants on CBS Sunday Morning, not CBS Sunday Morning, CBS Morning News. Where one of the Caucasian anchors was correcting Gayle King on what that indentured servant term meant, okay? Because she was trying to spin shit like her and Oprah loved to spin with that motherfucking slavery narrative against this white man who was saying what the indentured servant term means. So what I'm saying all that to say, not only for the melanated folks in the Americas to get your head up out the sand and research your heritage and really rethink what they're telling you about this whole slavery narrative from the African standpoint. It's also for you Caucasian people. You better research your shit, because you thinking your family them came over here as immigrants, but if they were prior to, and I'm being generous with the 1776, it's probably more in the late 1800s. They came over in the early 1700s, all of that jazz. They were indentured servants. Okay? They were sent over by those black nobility. As, Brother 832 said, England, they have ran that motherfucking economy in the ground like they normally do. Mm-hmm. And folks were starving. So they started shipping their poor over to the Americas. All right? And that's not the first time they do stuff like that. We know that. Look at Australia. They pretty much unleashed their motherfucking convicts in Australia on the indigenous people. Okay? So, yeah, excellent points, brother. Brother 832. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. All right, family. So now we're going to get into, again, we're referencing Bashan and its giant cities as our main source of reading. I'm sorry, go ahead, brother.
Before we get into that, I'd like to say to the family, if you do find that part of your ancestry is tied into that, that's basically on the paternal side.
Exactly. And thank you.
Your rights are through your maternal lineage.
Right.
But also, you could look at it this way. Considering they are paternal people, then start asking for your shit back over there. You from a royal lineage. Right.
Because you got claims both ways.
You can break that generational curse. I mean, what your ancestors did in the past has nothing to do with you and the frequency that you're vibrating at now, especially if you with us.
Exactly.
So the thing is, it's time to break that curse, but still learn and know. And through this should help you be able to correct and break that curse.
Yes, and thank you for that, Brother Sean, because I think you and I, we talk offline all the time about generational curses. And, I was sitting down thinking about it, and I'm like, wow, so we're basically, most of the melanated people in the Americas, we have that lineage on the male side or the patriarch side from Europe, and then the matriarch side from the Americas, and then it hit me, wow, that's what we're supposed to be doing right now, is cleaning up the bloodline. And you clean up the bloodline and break those generational curses. First, you have to start with truth.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing you have to start with. So that means the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Not no motherfucking partial stuff. Not no cherry picking. Not no only telling the good part. We're talking the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. It is your responsibility to clean up your generational bloodline, to break the curses. That's why we keep telling you, sweep around your own doorstep. So all of this has brought us full circle as individuals that are carrying these last surnames to break that cycle. So it does not have to repeat in your bloodline. It doesn't have to repeat in your bloodline. But it can only be done starting with the truth. So very, very good point, Brother Sean. Thank you so much for bringing that up to the family, because it is extremely, extremely important, as we talked about earlier in the beginning of the show, with these poles shifting, with the vibration of Mama Earth changing. None of this is just happening just out of nowhere. It's happening for a reason. We are uncovering this information for a reason. You are supposed to do something with the information, apply it within you, and apply it to your bloodline. And it only takes that one. It only takes that one in the bloodline to break the cycle. So, very, 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 very good point, Brother Sean. Okay, so we left off on page 36 out of the book Bashan and its Giant Cities. Again, this is a PDF file. You can Google it. You can download this particular material. One of the universities is where this material was found, but it was published in 1865. So I'm going to break up a little bit of the reading. We're going to do a little bit of the reading, and then I'm going to go back into the video that I played last week, where the one gentleman was also breaking down this giant information, the information of the giants, rather, in a YouTube video. And ironically, and I know Sean, Brother Sean, you can attest to this, we're starting to see a lot of other people do YouTube videos on giants, which is a good thing. Which is a good thing. You know, shout out another man, and he did a video, I think a year ago, on the giants as well. But he put out a good one. It's the one that I sent you, Sean. I'm trying to pull it back up to give that as a reference to the family. He put it out there, and I never thought of it in this light, but it makes sense. Bear with me. I'm going to give you his information. The video is called King Og, the Titan. And this particular young man's channel is J Dreamer Z. So J-A-Y, Dreamer, D-R-E-A-M-E-R, Z, the letter Z. He did a very good job going over who is Og, and he's tying Og back to being one of the Titans. Okay, so being of a bloodline that is not indigenous to the planet. Okay, so I think he did an excellent job with this video. He also has another giant video, I think that he put out a year ago. But this King Og the Titan is very recent. And another thing about his work, because how I ran across that, I actually subscribed to his channel because he does the best job talking about plasma events. So, you know, if you want to also kind of tune into what I've been talking about, the whole plasma and different catastrophes, he does an excellent job. He has several videos talking about plasma events and how they keep talking about the plasma events and showing us the different plasma events in different movies, et cetera, et cetera. So he has a good body of work. Okay, so that's J Dreamer Z. So the video I'm referring to is King Og the Titan. that is well worth a listen. He did a great job breaking down how Og tied into everything and how Og's relationship was with the Hebrews. So he did an excellent job on that, but he also has other excellent work as well. All right, so let me get back. Okay, so page 36. All right. Batanis was the capital of the Greek province of Britannia, a part of the Tetrarchy of Philip, mentioned by. Am I right on that?
Yeah, I think we had read that because I looked the word up.
Okay. So, all right, I'm going to go to the next paragraph then. Turning away from this interesting place, we rolled along the mountains side eastward to Shuka, 4 miles distant. This is also a very old town and must at one time have contained at least 20,000 inhabitants, though now it has scarcely 20 families. Okay, y'all, I'm kind of off with my reading tonight, so forgive me. What is that word, Sean?
I'm trying to get to it.
Okay, I think it's Ptolemy, and I've seen it before. Ptolemy.
Oh, Ptolemy.
Okay, Ptolemy. Ptolemy, the Greek geographer, calls it Sakia. It was evidently rebuilt by the Romans, as only a very few of its antique massive houses remain, and the shattered ruins of temples are seen on every side. One of these temples was long used as a church, and the ruins of another church also exist, which an inscription tells us was dedicated by Bishop Tiberius to St. George in AD 369. Around Shuka are some remarkable tombs, square towers about 20 feet on each side, and from 30 to 40 high, divided into stories. So let me know when you get there, Sean, because I don't want to lie up on the folks. So now, is he saying, okay, so he's saying somebody's grave, or am I just reading up into this too much?
Remarkable tombs, square towers about 20 feet on each side, and from 30 to 40 high, divided into stories. That's what it says.
Oh, okay. All right, so not, 10 feet or whatever, but 20-something feet. Oh, okay. Okay, I just making sure I wasn't lying up on the man and I was reading it wrong. So tablets over the doors record the names of the dead who once lay there and the dates of their death. Okay, so it was somebody's tomb, 20-something feet. Okay, yeah. They have all been rifled so that we cannot tell how the bodies were deposited, though probably the arrangements were similar to those in the tomb of, what is that,
Palmyra.
Okay, Palmyra. Okay, from the ruins of Shuka, 3 other towns were in sight among the hills of the east. Remounting, we rode for 10 miles through the rich agricultural district to Shuba. We passed only one village, but we saw several towns on the wooded side of the mountain to the left and numerous others down on the plain to the right. Crossing a rugged ravine and ascending a steep bank, we reached the walls of Shuba. They are completely ruined, so much so that the only way into the city is over them, besides a beautiful Roman gateway now blocked up with rubbish. Okay, so again, just to let the family know, He is over in what is now known like the Liberia, Palestine area. Okay, so notice all of these Roman artifacts that, you know, are still standing. Okay, because his chronological description of how the Hebrew gods were telling them to go over into these different lands. So these lands, Palestine, Liberia, and them, those were the giants in them particular, or the reptilians lands. Okay, so they, and you know, those of you that are into the Bible, you should know what I'm talking about. Now, I'm not a Bible scholar by no means, not at all, okay? But, you know, it tells the story of how the Israelites were given this land. And when they went to check out the land, they saw the giants and they went to war with the giants, okay? So in these particular lands, now he is telling you, the author of this is telling you and showing you the Roman ruins. Okay? Now, this also ties back to what we were saying during the Black Nobility series, where King James said he is a Hebrew and he is a Roman. Okay? So I'm just trying to put this all into perspective. All right, so having entered, we proceeded along a well-paved street, the most perfect specimen of Roman pavement I had yet seen, to the residence of chiefs. In the large area in front of his mansion, we found a crowd of eager people, and the first to hold out the hand of welcome was our kind host of the previous night, Sheikh Assad. He introduced us to his brother, Fars, or it could be Ferris, I don't know. And we were then ushered into an apartment where we found comfort, smiling faces, and a hearty welcome. Shuba is almost entirely a Roman city. The ramparts are Roman. The streets have the old Roman pavement. Roman temples appear in every quarter. A Roman theater remains nearly perfect. A Roman aqueduct brought water from the distant mountains. Inscriptions of the Roman age, though in Greek, are found on every public building. A few of the ancient massive houses with their stone doors and stone roofs yet exist, but they are in a great measure concealed or built over with the later and more graceful structures of Greek and Roman origin. Though this city was nearly 3 miles in circuit and abound in splendid buildings, its ancient name is lost and its ancient history unknown. Its modern name is derived from a princely Mohammedan family which settled here in the 7th century. The Emir Bashir Shahab, the last of the native rulers of Lebanon, was a member of the family, and so also was the Emir Sihadid Din, who was murdered in the late massacre at Hasbiya on the side of Hermon. Beside Shuba is a little cup-shaped hill which caught my eye the moment I entered the city. On ascending, I found it to be the crater of an extinct volcano, deeply covered with ashes, cinders, and was that Shores, one of the centers, doubtless, of that terrific convulsion which in some remote age heaved up the mountains of Bashan and spread out the molten lava which cooled into the rock fields of our God. From the summit, I had a near and distant view of the southeastern section of our God. Its features are even wilder and drearier than those of the northern. The rocks are higher, the gleams deeper and more tortuous. It looks, in fact, like the ruins of a country, and yet towns and villages are thickly studded over that wilderness of rock. The mountains which rise behind Shuba on the east are terraced halfway up, and their tops are clothed with oak forests. The vine and the fig flourished here luxuriously in the days of Bashan's glory. Winter streams then irrigated and enriched the slopes and filled the great cisterns in every city. But the Lord said in his wrath, I will make waste mountains and hills and dry up all their herbs, and I will make the rivers islands, and I will dry up the pools. And so he's quoting Isaiah 15. And now I saw that the words of the Lord were literally and fearfully true. Okay, so let me take a step, and then I want to comment on that.
Yeah, because I want to take it.
Go ahead.
I want to take it back to where the Emir Bashir Shihab, the last of the native rulers of Lebanon.
Yep, sure did.
Now, who was the hijack after that? Maybe I need to do a little research also into that and see who came into power after that. It ought to be interesting to find out. I mean, you find that even in books back then, they talking about the native people and them being killed off.
Right.
I mean, these historians have no problem. I mean, they write it so matter-of-factly.
Like it ain't nothing. Yeah, like it ain't shit that, folks came over taking other people's shit. But, in their mind, though, and this goes back to what Brother 832 was saying, folks just want to give half-ass apologies if they give an apology, but just still go on with the same behavior. And that's not the first time dude in this documentation, or I can't even say documentation, in his little journal, has just brushed over the fact that the Hebrews just stole somebody's shit. So that's a very good point, Brother Sean. The other thing that I wanted to stop on and talk about just briefly was the fact that he gonna sit up and say that his Lord said, I will make waste mountains and hills and dry up all their herbs, and I will make the rivers islands, and I will dry up the pools. And now I saw that the words of the Lord were literally and fearfully true. Okay, so could it be that all of the warring, and if they were, and if the giants were roaming on those lands, and if some of those giants, because remember last week, we also got more confirmation that those giants were of different lineages. So meaning the Goliath, for example, because they said David, the biblical story is that David killed Goliath. But that term Goliath is the name of a type of giant. So could it be that this biblical reference about the mountains and all of that being waste, and we're going to talk about that a little bit, and things drying up, could it be because of the wars that was going on and the particular technology that was being used to war with? and or natural catastrophes happening as Mother Earth had to keep cleansing herself because all of these invasions were going on the land. Okay? So now the other thing regarding the mountains, and I think this was you, Brother Sean, that pointed this out, that volcanoes, I think it was you that said you felt volcanoes were really some type of waste field because of all of the excavation that was going on Mother Earth.
That and also the giants. I mean, look at what a body does. I mean, all the things that come out of a body, the gases, this, that, and other, the fact that we have phosphorus and sulfur and all of that type of stuff in us, the fact that you have people that spontaneously self-combust and things of that nature. So, I mean, we're finding out that so many things that that people are placing value on or using in meditation, whatever, is actually fossilized, mineralized, crystallized parts of giants' bodies.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just... Oh, but Sis Cheryl sent me that tweet of James Woods.
Oh, yeah, read it. I haven't...
He has hashtag reparations. The first slaves shipped to the American colonies in 1619 were 100 white children from Ireland. Truth matters. The first slaves imported into the American colonies were 100 white children in 1619, 4 months before the arrival of the first shipment of black slaves. Many were brought from Ireland, where the law held that it was no more sin to kill an Irishman than a dog or any other brute. King James II, followed by Charles I, Oliver Cromwell, sold over 500,000 Irish Catholics into slavery throughout the 1600s onto plantations in the West Indies islands of Antigua, Montserrat, Jamaica, Barbados, as well as Virginia and New England. Irish slaves were less expensive than African and treated with more cruelty and death. But we had already been over all that where they said that it was cheaper for the white slaves. It was too much stuff.
Exactly. So now how was they bringing millions of Africans over here? Because remember, they were broke. See, that just shows you how they motherfucking lying through their teeth. So now how was they chartering ships over to Africa to steal folks? Millions now. Get the fuck out of here with that.
I went down at the bottom of it. It says, in the 17th century, from 1600 until 1699, there were many more Irish sold as slaves than Africans. There are records of Irish slaves well into the 18th century. Many never made it off the ships, according to written records. In at least one incident, 132 slaves, men, women, and children, were dumped overboard to drown because ship supplies were running low. They were drowned because the insurance would pay for an accident, but not if the slaves were allowed to starve.
Damn. And that was just coming from Ireland, right? So that was just coming from Ireland to the Americas, dropping people off on the mainland, on the East Coast, and then Barbados and Jamaica, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then the bottom
they sometimes ran into rough times just in that short distance alone, right? with them 100 and something people they had. Oh, okay, but they brought millions of folks from Africa. Get the fuck out of here. I'm sorry, but go ahead on, Brother Sean.
Oh, no, he said way more. He said there were many more Irish slaves sold than African. He said that. He said white slavery, history denied, covered up, and marginalized. So since this reparations is seriously on the table, now they want to tell the truth about white indentured servitude so that they can get that money. Now they're also seeking to put reparations out there and usurp you African Americans from reparations because you honestly have no place to go.
We told y'all was shit to the game with that reparation. We told y'all it was. Because the value is not in the fiat. The value is in the land. Bottom line. So, like I've been saying before, for the Caucasian community, I told you that you had your claim back to those European thrones. Your ancestors came over as indentured servants. You got a claim. I said that shit out the gate. I never fucking denied it. I said it. And that's why I'm telling melanated people, you better be careful what you talking about with some reparations as it relates to slavery. Because really your claim is indigenous to the land, to the lands in America and on your mom's side, and to the thrones and the land over in Europe. Okay? But the Caucasians, whose family was indentured servants, they have reparations claims. And that's the truth. So that's pretty deep. So you saying James Wood put all of that out, is what you saying.
He's trying to get his people paid. He probably gonna find out that he's a descendant of somebody who came over here on a ship, and he gonna be spearheading it. And then with Trump's backing.
Yeah, and the thing of it is, family, they have the records because it was all commerce. So that's why we know the slavery shit, a story is motherfucking bullshit with the African transport shit. We know it's fucking bullshit. Because they don't have the millions of records. These ports were considered commerce. They not finna let that shit dock here without no motherfucking manifest to account for the property on them ships because they had to pay taxes on that stuff. Okay, and recently there was this article that came out with funk-ass CNN talking about some last documented African slave woman that came over on this one particular slave ship. And so I finally had a chance to do some research on it. And then when I went back to the article, they admitted in the article that they didn't have any record of that particular ship documented. So they were going by hearsay. And supposedly, and this just cracked me the hell up, they found the ship off the coast of South Carolina, y'all. And they only showed a part of the doggone ship. And it looked like a fucking fishing boat that your grandpa and them, the part that I saw anyway, looked like a fishing boat that grandpa and them, you know, go out and catch some fish off of the coast of South Carolina. Okay, so, but anyhow, that's very, very interesting, Brother Sean, that James Wood is putting that out, so I'm going to have to watch that closely. So I'm telling you, melanated people, I'm telling you, now you do with it what you may. But don't think that reparation shit is going to be easy for you. Because we told you out the gate, number one, it's taking you away from the land. And if that's what you want to do, that's cool. Okay? But the second part to that, if they pay you something, then the indentured servants, descendants, the Caucasians, they have every fucking right to be paid too.
Now the thing is they're not going to be paid. As you see,
they not.
They are about to jump. The quote-unquote Caucasians, they're about to start jumping on the bandwagon that the African slave trade didn't happen in the numbers that they said it did.
Absolutely.
So all you niggas can't be African Americans.
Yep.
So all you niggas wasn't slaves.
Yep.
But considering you don't know who you are, then you're a fucking illegal immigrant. So that's who them FEMA camps and Gitmo is for. All you niggas that think that you're African Americans, even though they sitting up admitting now that you're not.
Yep.
But you're going to argue with them just like you argue with us. But their response is going to be final. You going to get shipped the fuck up out of here. And ain't none of us got a debate with your ass.
Wow, that's pretty deep that he put that post out, or however he did tweet, or however the hell he communicated that. That's pretty
Twitter.
Deep. That's pretty deep. That's pretty deep. So we warning y'all, you better tread lightly and better catch up and dig into your heritage and find out who you really are. Because this shit ain't no joke. So, wow, very, very interesting. Thanks, sis Cheryl. Love you. Damn, that's
Thanks
deep.
for bringing it up, brother 832.
Yes, that shit is deep. But we had took and told y'all, as the Big Mama and them said, we took and told you. We took and told you that the Caucasian has a claim. But okay, don't believe us. Keep on. Keep on with the fuck shit. All right.
You say this stuff a long time ago, and then the stuff we keep saying it, and shit just keep manifesting itself.
Right, because we don't know what the hell we talking about. But everything that we said has manifested. But no, y'all keep on playing. Keep on going down that route, fucking up your bloodline. Keep on with the fuck shit. Okay. So Sheikh Fars and his brother made all requisite arrangements for our future tour through Bashan. They told us that so long as we travel in the Druze, and I think that's Druid, but anyway, in the Druze country, we should be perfectly safe. No hand, no tongue will be lifted against us. A welcome would meet us in every village, and a cordial wish for our welfare follow us on every path. We knew this, for we knew that policy as well as the sacred laws. Okay, so Brother Sean, are you reading them all with me?
Yeah. All this sounds familiar.
What's with this Oriental hospitality?
I have no. Well, it would have to be the original Black Asians, unless Oriental is serving a different meaning.
Okay.
I'd have to look up the etymology of it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, for we knew that policy as well as the sacred laws of Oriental hospitality would restrain the Drusids to aid and protect us, to the utmost of their power. They warn us, however, that some parts of our proposed journey would be intended with considerable risk. They told us plainly that the Mohammedans could not be trusted, and that if we attempted to penetrate the Laha or Lajah Argab, all the power of the Druses might not be sufficient to save us from the fury of excited fanatics. But aren't the Mohammedans the indigenous?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay then. So the Mohammedans are being hostile. Oh, okay then. Okay then. So you think that they forgot about you Hebrews coming and taking over their shit? Oh, okay then. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right then. All right, so we attribute these warnings to the best motives, but we thought them exaggerated. To our cost, we afterwards found that they were only too much needed. Sheikh Fars gave us one of the most intelligent and active of his men as guide and companion. He also supplied horses for our servants and baggage and a Druze escort. Thus equipped, we bade farewell to our kind and generous host and set out on our journey southward. For more than an hour, we followed the course of a Roman road, but the Mohammedans are the hostile ones. This was their land that they're indigenous to, but yet the Romans got their motherfucking ruins all over the place, but they the hostile ones. Oh, okay then. So anyway, the Roman road along the western declivity of the mountain range, passing several old villages on the right and left. At one of these villages, pictorially, and I know I'm not pronouncing that right, so it's pictorially, y'all, shit. Situated in a secluded glen, we saw a long procession of Druze women near a clump of newly made graves. They had a strange, unearthly look. The silver horns which they wear upright on their head were nearly 2 feet long. Over these were thrown white veils enveloping the whole person and reaching to the ground, thus giving them a stature apparently far exceeding that of mortals. As they marched with stately steps round the tomb, they sung a wild chant that now echoed through the whole glen, and now sunk into the mournful cadence of a death wail. I asked the meaning of this singular and striking scene, and was told that 11 of the bravest men in the village had fallen in the late war. These were their graves, and now the principal women of Shuba had come to comfort and mourn with the wives of the slain. Just as in the time of our Lord, many of the Jews came from Jerusalem to comfort Martha and Mary concerning their brother Lazarus. All right, so this, I'm sorry, go ahead, Brother Sean. Mm-hmm.
Oriental, Eastern, from the East. So I guess what they're saying is Eastern hospitality. You know, like how we say that Southern hospitality.
Got you. Okay, that makes sense. Because I'm like, now what do the damn Asia have to do with this? So, okay, he was just making reference to the hospitality. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you for clarifying that. That threw me for a loop. All right. So descending a rugged bank into a rich plain, a quarter of an hour's gallop brought us to Salim, or could be Salem, a small but ancient town containing the remains of a beautiful temple and some other imposing buildings. A few Druses who find ample accommodation in the old houses gathered round us and pressed us to accept their hospitality. We were compelled to decline, and after examining a group of remarkable subterranean cisterns, we mounted again and turned eastward up to the picturesque valley of Cunawat. The scenery became richer and grander as we ascended. The highest peak of the mountains of Bashan were before us, wooded to their summits. On each side were terraced slopes broken here and there by a dark cliff or rugged break, and sprinkled with oaks. In the bottom of the dale below, a tiny stream, the first we had seen in Bashan, leaped joyously from rock to rock, while luxuriant evergreens embraced each other over its murmuring waters. From the top of every rising ground, we looked out over jungle and grove to gray ruins, which here and there reared themselves proudly above dense masses of foliage. Okay, so it sounds like this is the first time that they've seen like a lot of greenery, because last week one part of the land he said was very dry. And so this must have really been pretty awe-breathing for him to see all of this pretty foliage and greenage and streams. And also, before I forget, I want to point out, if you all go look at that video about Og on J Dreamer Z, his YouTube channel, he's going to describe one of the battles of Og, and I think it was with Noah, but don't quote me on that. But
it was
anyhow,
with Moses.
Moses, okay, yep. It was with Moses, my bad. Did he not say that I picked up a motherfucking mountain?
Yep, to throw at the Israelites. Try and wipe them all out.
Throw it down. Yep, it's going to throw it down on their ass. So that just shows you the pure power and the scale of Og's particular giant lineage. Yeah, so that's a good video, family, to check out concerning the giants. It made me think back with this mountain situation. So
but since we didn't mention,
sorry, go ahead, Brother Sean.
We were talking about Musa at first, right?
Yes.
Musa actually means Moses. Musa is an Arab version of Moses.
Of Moses, yes, because I think he mentioned that in that video too, and I'm like, oh, that makes sense. But that brings...
That means Moses was a last name or a tribe of people, not just one individual.
Exactly, because I still go back to the African king Mansa Musa, right?
Mm-hmm.
Unless I'm missing something, right?
Right.
Oh, okay. I'm just making sure I'm getting my shit correctly. Okay, but that makes more sense of what you're saying. That is also linked to a group of tribal people.
Because they had the guide here who last name was Musa.
Yep, absolutely. Over in Lebanon. Absolutely.
Right. So, I mean, that's the reason why he knew the territory and everything so well. I mean, he was born over there.
Right. And his lineage goes back, because at the end of the day, although they're calling Lebanon and Palestine and all of that the Middle East, is still what they're calling now Africa, but it's still that one continent.
Right.
So that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, and it goes back to what we have been talking about for going on a year, and I think Brother J Dreamer Z talks about it in that video, about that land or that continent, what they're calling Africa. It's a lot of shit that went down over there, you all. We keep trying to tell you. It's a lot of shit that went down over there. If you go back and start pulling some of them ancient maps, you go way, way, way back, you'll see the ancient maps with all them damn species that was over there, including the giants, the Cyclops people. I never pronounced them right. I think I pronounced them right with the motherfucking one eye.
Cyclops.
Yeah, Cyclops people, half mixed with human, with animals. It was a lot of shit going over there, okay? And that's not to mention that you can see in the water different species jumping out from the water, too. So a lot of shit took place in Africa. And then you fast forward when you get into the time where, Africa, and I have to give shout out to Phoenix Moon for pointing out that Africa was just the size of a state back in the day. It wasn't the entire continent, okay, where folks had their different kingdoms. So it's a lot of shit that jumped off over in Africa. Now, if you read a lot of the ancient texts that talks about Africa, the Sumerian text, and whether or not you want to bring Zechariah Stitchen's work into it, and he talks about, the Anunnaki setting up shop there, and then you read in different ancient texts that a lot of genetic experiments supposedly happened over there as well, and which would make sense to me if you look back at those ancient maps and you see those different species. Okay, so sorry to digress, but I'm trying to put it all into content so you can get the total picture. All right, so where do we go? Diving into the dale by a path that would try the nerves of a mountain goat. We crossed the streamlet. that was a good little joke there. Because a mountain goat. And I did have the honor of, when I went to Greece, to see the motherfucking mountain goats. Shit, let me tell y'all something. Them mountain goats get up high. And they literally be on the little mountains eating the damn foliage off the side of the mountain. So if his nerves was bad and he's saying the mountain goats would be scared, I know his motherfucking nerves was a wreck. Until this day, if you go through Greece, now I've never been to Palestine and Lebanon, but the trip I went on, we went to some of the same areas that the supposed biblical folks, the apostles, and them traveled, and them roads, my nerves was a MF wreck, y'all, going up the mountains on a bus. So I can feel this man on this little part. So anyway, we crossed the streamlet and wound up a rocky bank among giant oaks and thick underwood to an old building which crowns a cliff impending over the gleam. As we rode up, we could obtain a glimpse of its gray walls here and there through dark openings, but on reaching the broad terrace in front of us, and especially on entering its spacious court, we were struck as much with its extent as with the beauty of its architecture. The doorway is encircled by a broad border of the fruit and the foliage of the vine, entwined with roses and lilies, sculptured in bold relief, and with equal accuracy of design and delicacy of execution. That sounds pretty as hell, really does. The court was surrounded by a cloister supported by Ionic columns, but nearly all gone now. On the north side is a projection containing a building at one period used as a church, but probably originally intended for a temple. I wish Sis Sandra was on here tonight so I can give her a dig. So there's your dig. So although you're not here, sis, I got to put the dig in on how the indigenous people's temples were torn down by the Romans, by the Hebrews. So anyway, the ruins of another building, the shrine or sanctuary of the whole, are stern over the center of the quadrant. The graceful pillars and sculpted pediment and cornice with the garlands of flowers lie in the shapeless heaps beneath the shade of oak trees and almost concealed by thorns and thistles. Yes, the curse is visible there, not so painfully visible perhaps as in western Palestine, where only a few stones or heaps of rubbish mark the site of the great cities, yet still visible in crumbling walls and prostrate columns, and in those very brambles that weave a beauteous mantle round the falling monuments of man's genius and power. Thorns shall come up in her palaces, nettles and brambles in the fortress thereof. They are here. Okay, so I find that interesting that he talking about some motherfucking curse, because if the Romans came and took the indigenous people's stuff and then got ran up out of there, so who's supposed to be cursed? The indigenous people? That don't sound logical to me. But that's the logic that the Romans and the Hebrews are using. Okay.
Unless he's
I'm sorry, go ahead, Brother Sean.
Unless he's saying that that's what's left over after the Romans, that they eventually got ran up out of there, that it was doomed to fail.
Okay, and that makes from
the
sense.
beginning.
Yeah, that makes
they
sense.
Cursed every place they go. You know, they try and change their name and this, that, or the other. And
exactly.
The curse
and
keeps following.
The land. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And just notice, family, he's talking about Western Palestine, Lebanon. Isn't there always some drama and chaos there to this day? Or am I just making this up?
Oh, no, it's drama.
Yeah, okay. Okay, just pointing that out. Just pointing that out. Okay? All right, so all other evidences of the curse were there too. As we approached the ruins, not a living creature was visible. So here we go again with some land that's barren, okay, that they're calling cursed, where after war then broke out, okay, whatever. So the air was still, and the silence of death appeared to reign over glen and mountain. A solitary fox leaped from his den by the great gateway as our feet crossed the threshold and took refuge in a neighboring thicket. But this seems to be the only tenant alike of temple and forest. So it seemed, and so we thought, yet before we were 15 minutes among the ruins, 3 or 4 wild-looking heads were observed peering over a careen of stones, and the sunbeams glanced from the barrels of their level muskets. Is it muskets guns? Yeah, I think that's guns. So anyhow, let me make sure Brother Sean didn't drop. Wow.
Yeah, that's guns. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, that's what I thought. So they pulled a gun on their ass. So anyway, we went on with our examinations, and the wild heads and glittering barrels went on increasing. Muhammad, our Druze guide, fortunately saw them, and stepping out from the shades of the portico where we had left him with the horses, he hinted that it would be well for us to keep near him and complete our researches as speedily as possible. We soon mounted, and as we defiled through the forest, a score of fierce Bedouin, armed with a gun and a pistol, leaped from their hiding places and lined our path. We were startled and began to think that our tour was about to come to a speedy and unpleasant termination, but Muhammad rode on in silence, Mahmoud. Yeah, I totally read that wrong. Mahmoud rode on in silence, not deigning to turn his head or direct a single look to those daring outlaws. We followed in close file, and as I brought up the rear, I thought it well to give them the customary salutation, Allah Makem, God be with you. Not a man of them returned it, and plainly, as if the words had been written on their scowling faces, I saw that they were cursing inwardly the stern necessity that kept their hands off us. These, we afterwards learned, are the chief inhabitants of the mountains of Bashan, reckless, lawless, thieving vagabonds who live by plunder and glory in their success at freebooters. The Druses kept them in check, and they know well that a terrible vengeance would be taken on them if they should dare to interfere with anyone enjoying Druze protection. So I'm going to pause right there, just point something out. Isn't it interesting to see how this outsider from Europe is going on the journey and what they now call Africa, well, what they now call the Middle East, but it's a part of that continent, what they now call Africa. He's able to only do this journey because he is using indigenous people for protection and as guides.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm saying all that to say, to bring it back, let's bring it back over to the Americas. You cannot come on somebody's turf and make it out alive without somebody vouching for you. Okay? I'm sure that's how they started out any of their, what they're calling expeditions, but they were really landscaping the land to come and take people's shit. They started connecting up with indigenous peoples for protection. That's how the takeover starts. It starts inward. All right. So how applicable to this section of Palestine and to many others are the words of Isaiah? Your country is desolate. Your cities are burned with fire. Your land, strangers devour it in your presence, and in it is desolate and overthrown by strangers. Ain't that shit deep, y'all?
Mm-hmm.
Makes you think of these Bible passages in a total different light. Wow. Okay. A few minutes ride brought us to the brow of a hill commanding a view of Kuwait, or where they're calling it Qanawat. On the left was a deep, dark ravine, and on the sloping ground along its western bank lie the ruins of the ancient city. The wall, still in many places almost perfect, follows the top of the cliff for nearly a mile and then sweep rounds in a zigzag course, enclosing a space about a half-mile wide. The general aspect of the city is a very striking temples, palaces, churches, theaters, and massive buildings whose original use we cannot tell, are grouped together in picturesque confusion, while beyond the walls, in the gleam on the summit and the sides of the wooded peaks, away in the midst of oak forests, are clusters of columns and massive towers and lofty tombs. The leading streets are wide and regular, and the roads, radiant from the city gates, are unusual, numerous, and spacious. That's interesting. While the Israelites were engaged in the conquest of the country east of Jordan, Moses tells us that Noah went, so that must be Noah, anyway, let me just, Rhonda, stop guessing because you don't know the Bible order like that. So Noah went and took Kenath and the villages thereof and called it Noba after his own name. So there again, going taking somebody's shit.
Mm-hmm.
So Kenath was now before us. The name was changed into Kenatha by the Greeks, and the Arabs made it Kanawat. I wonder if that's Kuwait, child, today.
Probably is.
Anyway,
you know how they change stuff.
Yeah. So anyway, during the Roman rule, it was one of the principal cities east of the Jordan, and at a very early period, it had a large Christian population and became the seat of bishopric. It appears to have been almost wholly rebuilt about the commencement of our era, and is mentioned by most of those Greek and Roman writers who treat of the geography or history of Syria. At the Saracenic conquest, Kenath fell into the hands of the Mohammedans, and then its doom was sealed. There are no traces of any linked Mohammedan occupation, for there is not a single mosque in the whole town. Okay, so apparently the Mohammedans overthrew the Hebrews and Greek them behind. Okay, so the Hebrew Greek them came in and took it from the indigenous people, and then the Mohammedans came and took it from them. The heathen temples, so now they heathen, but it's cool when the Hebrews come and fuck with people and take their stuff and tear down their indigenous temples worshiping the goddess. It's cool when they do it, but when somebody else throw they stinking asses off of something that ain't even theirs, they heathens. Oh, okay then. So the heathen temples were all converted into churches, okay, and 2 or 3 new churches were built, but none of these buildings were ever used as mosques, as such buildings were in most of the other great cities of Syria. Okay, now correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't drama constantly jumping off in Syria? Still jumping off in Syria to this day. Okay, I'm just checking.
Hey, sis.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Noba, the definition of its name means to bark. He's the son of to bark.
B-A-R-K.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's a Manassite. He's supposed to be the son of Manasseh. Manasseh, however it's pronounced.
Wow.
But, you know, he's a member of that worn-ass Israelite tribe.
Yep. Wow. Thanks for looking that up. We spent the afternoon and some hours of the next day in exploring Kenneth. Many of the ruins are beautiful and interesting. The highest part of the site was the aristocrat quarter. Here is a noble palace, no less than 3 temples, and a hippodrome, once profusely adorned with statues. In no other city of Palestine did I see so many statues as there are here. Unfortunately, they are all mutilated, but fragments of them, heads, leg, arms, torso, with escalacian figures, lions, leopards, and dogs, meet one on every side. A colossal head of Ashtaroth, I wonder who that is, Ashtaroth, sadly broken, lies before a little temple of which probably it was once the chief idol. The crescent moon, which gave the goddess, that's that goddess, that's right, because last week he talked about the other area they went to, and he saw the ruins of the temple of this particular goddess, Ashtaroth, because that's what Sis Sandra and I started going back and forth about. I said that the Hebrews are a patriarch society, always has been, and the indigenous people of these lands worship the goddess, because the temples that the Hebrews either destroyed or converted them into quote churches prove that the indigenous people of these lands worship the goddess principle. Okay, so the crescent moon, which gave the goddess, I'm sorry, go ahead.
But they also have an Astaroth, a male version, Astaroth.
Okay.
In demonology, is the great Duke of Hell and the first hierarchy of Beelzebub and Lucifer. He is part of the evil trinity. He is a male figure, most likely named after the Mesopotamian goddess Ishtar.
Okay, but that makes sense, though. But isn't Ishtar a woman or feminine? Okay.
Yeah, that's what it said, the goddess Ishtar. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. So they're tying it back to Mesopotamia, you're saying.
Right, and Ashtaroth is actually Astarte.
Is actually, you said, what'd you say?
Astarte. Astarte.
Oh, Astarte.
Astarte.
Okay, Astarte. Okay, got you. Let me see. The crescent moon.
Is it the Queen of Heaven?
Go ahead.
Yeah, is the Queen of Heaven, to whom the Canaanite burnt offerings and poured libations. Jeremiah 44.
Got you. So the crescent moon, which gave the goddess the name Carnium, 2 horns, is on her brow. Damn, I would have liked to see that my damn self. But anyway, I was much interested in this fragment. I'm sure you were, because it is a visible illustration of an incidental allusion to this ancient goddess in the very earliest historic reference to Bashan. We read in Genesis that the kings of the east on their way to Sodom smote the Reptilians. Remember, the Reptilians are the giants. They are I think they just refer to giants as Reptilians. I can't remember if it's a race of the name of the race of the giants, or if that was just their name for all giants. Okay.
Yeah, because Reptilian actually means giant, or
okay, so that's the giant. Okay, so now as the kings of the east was on their way to Sodom, they smote the giants, and Ashtaroth Carnium. Damn, y'all, that's dead. So, then the author said, may this be the very city. So before I go on, so would that mean, or am I reading into this too much, that the Raphians, the giants, worship the goddess, or am I reading too much into that?
Look like that's what it's saying.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, then. Okay. Interesting. Whoa. Okay, so we found on examination that the whole area in front of the palace had long ranges of lofty arched cisterns. Beneath it, something like the temple court at Jerusalem. I'll come back to that. Let me keep reading. I just had another thought, but I'll keep reading. These seemed large enough to supply the wants of the city during the summer. They were filled by means of an aqueduct excavated in the bank of the ravine and connected probably with some spring in the mountains. The tombs of Kenneth are similar to those of, what's that word? I never pronounced it right. Palmyra, what did you say it was, Brother Sean?
Palmyra.
Palmyra.
Or Palmyra.
Okay, or Palmyra. The tombs of Kenneth are similar to those of Palmyra, high square towers, divided into two stories, each story containing a single chamber with recesses along the sides for bodies. So once again, he's confirming that the tombs of the Raphians or the giants. So he's just telling y'all again that these particular tombs had to have housed the giants. All right. About a quarter of a mile west of the city is a beautiful perpetual temple of the Corinthian order. Yeah, Corinthian order, built on an artificial platform. Many of the columns have fallen and the walls are much shattered, but enough remains to make this one of the most picturesque ruins in the whole country. Okay, so he's going to point out the Roman shit. So anyhow, okay, but that was deep, y'all, about the giants with them temples, them goddess temples. That's deep, and that's interesting. And that one goddess tying back to Mesopotamia. Very interesting. So anyway, early in the morning, we set out to examine the ruins in the glen and to scale a high cliff on its opposite bank where we had noticed a singular round tower and some heavy fragment of walls. The glen appears to have been anciently laid out as a park or pleasure ground. We found terraced walks, little fountains now dry, and pedestals for statues, a miniature temple, and a rustic opera whose benches are hewn in the side of the cliff. I know where that came from. Yep, a Greek inscription in large characters round the front of the stage tells us that it was erected by a certain Marcus, what is that, Lucius? Yeah, Marcus Lucius at his own expense and given to his fellow citizens. So some Greek Roman shit, y'all, pretty much. You know they known for them stadiums and shit. Okay, so from the opera, a winding staircase hewn in the rock led up to the round tower on the summit of the cliff. We ascended and were well repaid alike for our early start and toil. The tower itself has little interest. It is 30 yards in circuit and now about 20 feet high. The masonry is colossal and of great antiquity. Beside it are the remains of a castle or palace built on beveled stones of enormous size. The doors are all of stone, and some of them are ornamented with panels and fretted moldings and wreaths of fruit and flowers sculptured in high relief. In one door I observed a place for a massive lock or bar, perhaps one of those brazen bars to which allusions is made by the sacred writings and kings. But it was the glorious view which these ruins command that mainly charmed us. As I sat down on a great stone on the brow of the ravine, my eyes wandered over one of the most beautiful panoramics I ever beheld. From many a spot amid the lofty peaks of Lebanon, I had looked on wilder and grander scenery. Standing on the towering summit of the castles at Palarvi, Palmyra. I just see the word and I don't want to pronounce it that way. Palmyra, ruins more expensive and buildings far more magnificent lay at my feet. From the, isn't it the Cyclops? Yeah, it was the Cyclopean folks. So from the Cyclopean walls of the temple of the son of Belial, it says Belialbek, but that's Belial in there, y'all. I saw prouder monuments of man's genius and more exquisite memorials of his taste and skill. Okay, let me take a swig, and I'm swigging water because somebody teased me, what you swigging? It's water. Sometimes it needs to be vodka, all of this drama and shit, but
all back. Yeah, but all is in there. But all back.
Yeah, so isn't that one of the what some say demons?
Yeah, but all. He's the main demon according to some people.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So now, just correct me if I'm MFing wrong. So dude had a temple. Bilal. But where is he getting this being a Cyclops wall? So that means that this particular area was the Cyclops people, because he's calling it. Wow.
Because they were giants also. I mean,
right, they were giants also.
Just a different tribe of giants.
Right, because that was one of the ones, I think, wasn't that one of the ones that David was battling? But they were calling him Goliath. I thought he was a Cyclops. But anyhow, that's not important. The important part of this is that they worship Baal, or Baal. That's who we talk about, y'all. That shit is deep, y'all. Damn.
You know it's up to 10:30, sis. Was you going to get to the video?
Okay, yeah, I'll stop and get to the video. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, I know time is flying because we didn't even get a chance to tell the family to come from over and the blog talk to call in if they were good.
Folks had dropped off, though, because the way they set up that new chat, it totally confused everybody. I don't even know how to type in there, so I'll have to do a little bit more research. So we good, because the people that was in there dropped off. I only saw one person type, so we good on that end. All right, so I got to find the video, the name of the damn video to find out. Oh, it was the Nephilim Giants, enemies of God in the Bible. Okay, so I think we played part 1 and 2 last week, and we broke it up in 10 minutes increments. So I'll give you the other ones, because this particular man, he did a very, very good job with this. Okay, so I'm going to play part 3. It's only 10 minutes. We'll come back, and if we can get the last part in, we should be able, if I shut the hell up. So here we go, family.
Abraham, and that's what Abraham is really honoring God, because he's saying that, you know, Melchizedek told Abraham that God delivered his enemies into his hand. So God was fighting the war for Abraham. He was leading the charge. And this is really the theme through much of the Old Testament, as we see that it is God who would deliver and wage war personally against the Nephilim all throughout the Old Testament, proving he is creator of all, proving himself. Really, the giants in the post-flood world were a means for God to provide evidence of his power and sovereignty, to prove himself, just as he did at the Red Sea with the Egyptian armies, the most powerful armies in the world at that time, just as he did with the miracles of the Exodus by proving that he could bring Pharaoh to submission, the hard-hearted, occult-initiated Pharaoh of Egypt, the most powerful man in the world, had to succumb to the power of God, El Elyon. And so what's also interesting is that Abraham has this great revelation of who God truly is. And immediately after, when we get to Genesis 15, immediately after God pronounces the messianic blessing, and it would continue through Abraham. It's amazing. Genesis 15, verses 1 to 6. After these things, the word of the Lord came unto Abram in a vision, saying, Fear not, Abram, I am thy shield and thy exceeding great reward. And Abram said, Lord God, what wilt thou give me, seeing I go childless? And the steward of my house is this Eliezer of Damascus. And Abram said, Behold, to me thou hast given no seed, and lo, one born in my house is mine heir. And behold, the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, This shall not be thine heir, but he that shall come forth out of thine own bowels shall be thine heir. And he brought him forth abroad, and said, Look now toward heaven, and tell the stars, if thou be able to number them. And he said unto them, So shall thy seed be. And he believed in the Lord, and he counted it to him for righteousness. So the prophecy of Genesis 3:15 of the seed of the woman who would one day conquer the devil, who would redeem humanity, that God had passed that prophecy on, that lineage specifically through Abraham. It's just amazing. So all this came after Abraham battled this coalition that had defeated the Nephilim, this mighty army that probably seemed invincible. With 318 men, God made the impossible possible, because with God, all things are possible. And so later on in Genesis 15, of course, God then, in verses 18 to 21, not only does he extend the messianic prophecy, he covenants to give the promised land to Abraham as well, and says that the Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Rephaims, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Girgashites, the Jebusites, all that land will go to the seed of Abraham. So this really set the stage for Israel to re-enter the promised land, which after the Exodus was supposed to take place. But that's what takes us to the next section, which we'll give an overview of, which is the sons of Anak. And this is really amazing in Numbers 13. The account of these men, these giants. And so this, of course, is now after the Exodus. This is now in the days of Moses, who, of course, is a descendant of Abraham. And he was appointed by God to serve as prophet and leader of the Israelites. And he chose in Numbers 13, he was, the Israelites had come through the wilderness, out of Egypt. The Exodus was done. What great things God had done for Israel. And now on the cusp of entering the promised land that was promised to Abraham, Moses sent 12 spies. And, of course, this is a well-known story, to go spy out the land of Canaan. And when they came back, they had an interesting report. So initially we read in Numbers 13 that it says that they came unto the brook of Eshcol and cut down thence a branch with one cluster of grapes, and they bare it between two upon a staff, and they brought of the pomegranates and the figs, and the place was called the brook Eshcol, because of the cluster of grapes which the children of Israel cut down from thence. And they returned from searching of the land after 40 days. So the spies come back, and they have grapes that were so big they had to be carried on a staff by two men. And if you go to our article, we have a graphic there that shows kind of how big those grapes really could have been, and how big were the people who would be eating grapes of that size. And so, but the more relevant thing for the Nephilim, so of course it's getting this image of things that are giant, because again, this is the beauty of the Bible. Why is that detail put in there? Why does it matter what the grapes look like? Because the Bible is trying to inform us there is something different and strange going on in the Promised Land. The land of Canaan that the spies have just scouted, there's something going on there that is odd, that is going to have dramatic consequences for the people of Israel. And so when the spies came back, of course, with their grapes, they also had a report. And they said that the land, and this is all between Numbers 13 verses 26 to 33, but I'm going to skip around. And they said that we came unto the land whither thou sentest us, and surely it floweth with milk and honey. And this is the fruit of it. Nevertheless, the people be strong that dwell on the land, and the cities are walled and very great. And moreover, we saw the children of Anak there. And skipping down, it says that, and Caleb stilled the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it. But the men that went up with him said, we be not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. And they brought an evil report of the land which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, the land which we have gone to search it, it is a land that eateth up the inhabitants thereof. And all the people that we saw in it are men of a great stature. And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which come of the giants. And we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. So this is amazing, of course, because here the spies are clearly saying that the giants, specifically these sons of Anak, were so big that they were like grasshoppers compared to them. And we see that the Anakim, who are the lineage of Anak, this legendary giant, they were like the gold standard of post-flood giants, whether, as you read through Deuteronomy 2, when you hear about the Emims or the Zamzamims, they say that they were a great people, great and many and tall, as the Anakim. So they were the giants to which all other giants were judged by. There's also an interesting passage in Deuteronomy chapter 9, verses 1 and 2, where even God, quoting kind of the popular thought about the Anakim, says, a great people, a people great and tall, the children of the Anakims, whom thou knowest. This is the Lord speaking to Israel in Deuteronomy 9, verses 1 and 2, and says, and of whom thou hast heard say, who can stand before the children of Anak? So even God was aware that these men, these warriors, these giants were so legendary and so infamous that there was a saying, like, no one can stand before them. So they were seemingly invincible superhuman warriors. Also interesting here in Numbers 13 is that the spies said they come of the giants. They didn't say that they were offspring of angels. So this again goes back to what we put forth in Bloodline to the Nephilim, is that there were no further angelic human intimate relations after the flood. The giants after the flood were of other giants. And that's how Scripture describes them in terms of their lineage time and time again in the Old Testament. So these three giants were the children of Anak, who was the son of Arba, a legendary giant and one of the original builders of Hebron, the oldest city in the post-Diluvian world. And so that's, of course, confirmed in Joshua chapter 14, verse 15. And so we see, the sons of Anak here, Ahiman, Sheshai, and Talmai were their names. And that led it to an interesting kind of discovery that we wanted to share at the end of this article. And we had teased in the Bloodline of the Nephilim article in our podcast that we were going to share an occult secret connected to the Nephilim. And so what that is a book. There is a book, which is it's really like the constitution of Freemasonry, which many people are familiar with as being a organization that's many centuries old and has a great deal of mystery surrounding it. Some people call Freemasons a secret society. Some people say they're linked to all sorts of occult practices. Certainly in their symbolism and their artwork and things like that, there's a lot of occult and secrecy hidden within it. But there is a text called the Ahiman Rezon, which was written in 1751 by Lawrence Dermott. And in Wikipedia, when explaining what the title is, here is what Wikipedia said about the title Ahiman Rezon. It says the title Ahiman Rezon has often been...
Okay, family, I'm about to play the next part because I know it's got...
Ahiman Rezon. It says the title Ahiman Rezon has often been said to be of the Hebrew language and variously mean, quote, to help a brother, will of selected brethren, the secrets of prepared brethren, royal builders, and brother secretary. The reason why Lawrence Dermott used it and what it meant to him remains a mystery. So when we say the scripture, we know, of course, that Ahiman was one of the sons of Enoch. He was a Nephilim who caused so much trouble and terror in the land of Israel. And so could this Constitution, could this Freemasonic book from 1751 have been named after a Nephilim giant? If that seems like a stretch, well then who is Rezon? What does that word mean? Well, again, all we have to do is go to Scripture. Rezon appears in 1 Kings chapter 1, and this is when there was an attempt to overthrow King Solomon. And so Solomon was falling into sin because of illicit marriages and spiritual rebellion. Again, shades of Genesis 6, unholy marriages. And suddenly we see the introduction of Rezon. In 1 Kings chapter 1, verses 23 to 25, we read, and God stirred him up another adversary, Rezon, the son of Eliada, which fled from his lord Hadadezer, king of Zobah. And he gathered men unto him, and became captain over a band, when David slew them of Zobah. And they went to Damascus, and dwelt therein, and reigned in Damascus. And he was an adversary to Israel all the days of Solomon, beside the mischief that Hadad did. And he abhorred Israel, and reigned over Syria. And so, could it be a coincidence that you have Ahiman, enemy of Israel, who caused great problems for the Israelites, as an enemy of the 12 tribes, and Rezon, who the Bible calls an adversary of Israel? Could that be a coincidence? I think not. I think that's exactly where the name came from the Bible. And there really is a lot in Freemasonry that hints that the Bible, and we quote this book called The Masonic Ladder, written in 1876, that says, the Masonic ladder assists the brother to recount the steps he has taken and enjoy over again the pleasant thoughts experienced when he first took them. They communicate no secrets to an outsider. Like the Bible itself, which is full of Masonic secrets to the initiated, the Masonic ladder cannot open the way to the arcana of the order, save to those who have once penetrated to them. So, even the writings of Freemasonry hint that there's something in the Bible that they look to as having some secret knowledge, some special wisdom, and we'll get more into that later on in the series, later on in our Nephilim series. But getting back to the sons of Enoch, so we hear that there's the report of Ahiman, Seshai, and Talmai. Of course, the 10 spies say that they will not go, and they persuade the people. The Israelites want to rebel against Moses and say, how could you bring us here, Moses, to die here? These giants are going to kill us. We can't take the promised land. We're going to die in the wilderness now. And so they were so scared of the Nephilim that they actually wanted to return to Egypt. They actually wanted to go back to slavery in Egypt. And so think about this. Think about what the Israelites had just seen in the past year. They saw all the miracles that the plagues that God brought upon Egypt. Think about the plague of darkness, where there was darkness that was so thick that no one could see anything in all of Egypt except for Gershon, where the Israelites lived. They had light. So God was clearly showing not just his power, but his providence towards Israel and his protection of them. Then, of course, you have the parting of the Red Sea that's closed right behind them, and the destruction and defeat of Pharaoh and his armies as they drowned in the Red Sea. So God had done all these miracles. And now, at the sight of just 3 men, quote unquote, 3 giants, they had no faith in God and wanted to return back to Egypt. They had no faith that God could deliver them from 3 giants. This should show you, brothers and sisters, how frightening the giants really were, even after the flood, that they were really frightening. And this is a real account. Some people say that these spies were lying, but the Bible does not support that. The Bible says that even God said that the sons of Anak, God acknowledged that the sons of Anak were mighty, tall, and says that as you know them, that who can stand before the sons of Anak, as you've heard. So God even was aware of their reputation. So this was no lie. This was no fib by the 10 spies. They were just scared because they had no faith in the Lord. Now, this event, this doubting of God, this loss of faith or lack of faith, because who knows if they ever had it to begin with on the part of the Israelites and these 10 spies, was called, is actually identified in the New Testament and called the provocation. Hebrews chapter 3, verses 15 to 17, we read, "While it is said, 'Today, if ye will hear his voice, harden not your hearts, as in the provocation. For some, when they had heard, did provoke. Howbeit, not all that came out of Egypt by Moses, but with whom was he grieved 40 years? Was it not with them that had sinned, whose carcasses fell in the wilderness?'" And so what is this saying? It's referring right to this event, that the rejection of entering the promised land, the rejection of the 2 spies, Joshua and Caleb, who said, "Let's go into the promised land. We can do this. God can deliver us." But no, Israel said no. They rejected that and doubted God. That doubt, that rejection of God's plan for Israel to go into the promised land, that is what caused the 40 years in the wilderness. That's what caused a whole generation of Israelites to die in the wilderness as a punishment for doubting God, for refusing to go into the promised land because of these 3 giants. Think about how significant the role of the Nephilim were in this whole aspect of Israel's history. The 40-year wilderness punishment is one of the most well-known accounts in the Bible, and it was all because of 3 giants. And so, of course, God would spare Joshua and Caleb, the faithful spies. But also, in addition to this being a historic moment, in the book of Hebrews, if you read Hebrews chapter 3 in context, it's really talking about the basis of salvation, that it's by faith that we're saved, and God offers the true promised land, heaven, to those who have faith, and those who don't will die. And God, the Bible in the New Testament, in the book of Hebrews, uses this event as a type of salvation itself. So this again shows how important and how much of a pivotal role the giants play all throughout the early books of the Bible. So that wraps up our overview of the article. Of course, this wasn't the end for Israel. The 40-year wilderness sentence was going to end. God would raise up a new generation of Israelites who would be willing to go into the promised land and battle. And there are some very legendary battles that would take place following the wilderness under the leadership, of course, of Joshua. And we will cover that in our next podcast, which will be on the article Wars of the Nephilim Kings. So that is it for today's podcast. Thank you for tuning in. We hope this was a blessing.
Okay. And again, as I noted last week, this particular gentleman, although he has a biblical spin on it, he still did a great job. That's from the YouTube channel called Beginning and End, and the name of the particular video is called The Nephilim. Damn it, what is the name of this? The Nephilim and the Giants. Okay, but again, he has a series out there. That's the only thing he has out there on this YouTube channel is the series on the Giants. Now, real quick, because we're running out of time, I just want to point out, I want y'all to think, did not that man say that Enoch was a giant? He said it over and over and over and over and over again. You know Noah is related to Enoch, right? If you pick up the book of Enoch, which Brother Wendell and myself covered years ago, when we matched that up against the book of Enki, the book of Enoch lays out the genealogy And Noah is in that genealogy. Enoch was like his great-great-great-grandfather, okay? And so Enoch, I highly recommend the book of Enoch because you can take that book of Enoch and you can line it up with the Holy Bible scriptures, and it's going to give you a lot more insight. Enoch talks about dimensions, the true shape of the earth, etc., and having these visits from these different angels and beings telling him different things to do, okay? And that was passed on through Noah's lineage as well, okay? So I just want to put that out there because we need to wrap up. We're going to pick back up next week. Brother Sean, did you have any last words for the family?
Love y'all.
Okay, family. So we'll pick back up next week. I want to thank you all so much. I know we're moving kind of slow with this Giant series, but you're going to get a lot out of it because this particular book has a lot of gems in it, and it's revealing a lot of the true happenings of what was going on, because everything that they have given us has been in piecemeal and it has been coded. And all of the I'm sorry, go ahead.
Didn't on that video, didn't dude say that the Israelites, God told them to kill the Canaanites, the Amorites, and every other writer or everything in goddamn
every other
sight?
Yeah, that's what he said. That's exactly what he said, and got pissed with them because they didn't want to go over there fucking with the Giants.
So I'm just wondering if the Moors supposed to keep the Bible and the Hebrew Israelites supposed to have the Bible. Don't by the very Bible they supposed to be killing each other?
I just find it interesting.
I'm just saying, because when did God tell them not to finish smoking them along with the Giants?
Exactly.
Oh, I was just wondering.
And then folks want to wonder why, bloodlines are cursed and why shit is all fucked up. Oh, okay then. Okay. So, family, thank you so much for being patient with us and for spending your time with us tonight. We're going to pick back up next week. Love you very much. Peace and love. Thank you very much, Brother Sean. Love you very much.
I love you, sis. Number love.
Okay. Peace and love, family.